Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
They're going to touch it. They haven't got it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such up. He's not a second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are at in the world. It's a good time for the VWSC Virtual World Sports Car Championship here with CMS Racing. My name is Bradley Dalton. I'm going to be joined in the booth not by James Parfit, but by Mr. Nicholas Hillebrand here today. Decided to join for some Road Atlanta action, some absolute fun. I'm excited to see how this track goes. And of course, as always, it is going to be one Mr. Paul Glover in the, how is it always phrased? Paul Glover in the ear hole. And he will be behind the scenes, running the cameras, doing all of the fun things that are important to get this race going. But you're not here to hear about that. You're here to talk about what's going on with VWSC 2 races left in this season. Let's talk about this calendar for a brief moment because we're at round 12 of 13 or 14, depending on how you call that round 0 exhibition. So round 12 here, 100 laps of Road Atlanta. We've made it since January 13th to this point. And I will tell you right now, there are still plenty of things up for grabs. The Indy 100 was on the September 28th and November 9th will be our final round of this season in Bahrain. We are near the end of what's been a long, crazy season that has not ended. Let's go ahead and take a look at the track that we're going to be facing today, the challenges as it is. And I want to note something that I don't think we've seen this season, but it is important to know here with Road Atlanta, the Petit Le Mans, as we like to call it. Of course, you see the long run of 8 and 9 that are labeled 8 and 9, but not really corners of challenges. And then, of course, there is 10A and 10B because we're in Georgia. Why would we not have multiple corners with the same number and just add the little A or B? Orange zone all the way through turn 7. Now, the orange zone is lap 1 you need to be real careful with. But the S's from turn 2 all the way through turn 5 is a red zone. What that means is it will be very, very heavily scrutinized in that section. You cause a crash in that section, any point in the race between these 100 laps, you're going to be in trouble. So we'll see how the drivers navigate that, and we'll get some more info on how that red zone is going to work here in just a little bit. The challenges for this race, I'll tell you right now, I don't think I need to really hone in on this, but I'm going to hone in on this. We got traffic management, the S's, and traffic management. So I don't care what class you're in. It's traffic management all day long. If you're in GT3, manage the hypercars around, which we've seen challenges with, up, down, all the way around this season. If you're a hypercar, manage the GT3s. And again, we've seen challenges up, down, all the way around this season. This is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a real challenge, and I'm excited to see what happens. And speaking of those GT cars, what's the strategy for our wonderful GT cars? Well, we're looking at 3 stops about every half hour we're looking through, and this should be just under a 2-hour race. So they're going to just make it on those 3 stops. No cars have an advantage here at Road Atlanta. This is a track that plays very well to every GT car. Typically, we would see one car have more over the other, but we're being told all cars are fairly equal. We'll check that with Ross Smith here in just a little bit and make sure that that is still the case. But what I've seen is looking at qualifying numbers, it is the case. Now, what about your hypercar strategy? Yet again, all fairly even, and about every 20 to 25 minutes, they're going to stop. Somebody might try to stretch that, try to play the fuel game, and pick up some cheeky places there. 4+ stops, and they do have the option of the medium or the hard tires. They got to be patient through that traffic. They need to pay attention to curbs. I'm sure some hypercars are going to have a rough day today. This track makes me think of IMSA, so I'm curious to see how they handle it. Now, let's go through the scores on the doors, and let me tell you, there are stories up and down these scores. I want to start with the GT3 AMS. And in the GT3 AMS, Trash Panda Racing has absolutely dominated the championship here. 4 in a row in the team championships. They have secured it here in the modern. The most successful team in VWSC history with 2 races to go. Now, the family drama is in the driver standings. Look there at Matt Bice and Steven Bice. They have a little bit of a run there. Steven needs to win the race and hope that Matt doesn't run well in order to take it to the last round, but everything else will mean Matt Bice would be the champion. The brothers there are going to battle it out. Mike Bice in 3rd place could be biting in against Stephen Miller for that P3. Josh LePetri there, Pierre Moreno, Filippo Marazzi, James Bowders, Ryan Paulbert Reyes, and Carl Strohall, your top 10 in the GT3 AM standings. Now, in the GT3, there's nothing secured either. You've got David Junt and you've got JT Tammy that are running out this championship fight. 275 to 247 for the drivers. Everyone else is mathematically out of the GT3 championship in the driver standings. Eduardo Bonica in 3rd with 140. Johnny Gutierrez with 107. James Walker in 5th with 101. Matthew Overton with 93. Ross Smith in 7th place with 74 points. 73.5 to Jamie Zalecki. Eliso Neto at 68. And Vasilis Katarinakis at 66 points. Now in the team standings, Dark Thunder Racing, Aston Martin need 10 points in this round to seal the deal. That's between Overton, Tammy, and Walker to seal up against Team Pazuzu. And then Stardust Autosports Accurate NSXs are in 3rd place at 165, Bad Day Racing at 135, and the Sim Racing Alliance Ford Mustangs are in 5th at 117 in the team standings. In the Hypercar AMS, we look along. Akira Mistral in the team standings have secured the team championship, and they are in a good position. And that is their first championship in their 3-year history. HRC US Acuras with Angelitas Ducati and Jason Whitehead are in 2nd place in the team standings, with Reptile Racing Porsches in 3rd. Now, the Drivers' Championship. It's very, very close. 6 points separate a 4-year battle between George Angelitas and Jerry Chen, and nobody has a clue how this goes because those two are going back and forth all the way around. John Mayer in 3rd, Scar Pope in 4th at 208.5. That's also a very close battle to keep your eye on. Eric Monet down in 5th at 127. Craig Bullen in 6th place at 116.5. Luke Goodlife at 97 points. Jason Whitehead at 91.5. Norm Graff at 71. Adam Gray also tied at 71. So P10 in the driver's standings could be up for grabs as well. Now, let's move on to the hypercar battle, because this is where I think the big standing is. Dan Kirby has secured the driver's title going into this. 3 in a row in the Modern Series. Big stance there from Dan Kirby. 300 points to Dan Herlock's 202. Mike Bell at 164. Cameron Barker at 128.5. Tom Lane at 119. Ben Kesby at 112.5. John Uyen at 101. Mr. Wouter de Bruin at 91. Timon Suvic at 88.5. And Bradley Sellers at 69 points in 10th place. CMS Pro Porsches lead our hypercar team standings, with Smile Power Racing in 2nd and Team Rookie Monsters at 175 in 3rd, Manta Squids in 4th, and Crown Dental Group Ferraris in 5th place in the team standings. So, still plenty of battles to be secured and figure out. Some of them are a little muddier than others, but the only one that is very clear is Dan Kirby looking to clinch this title. He's mathematically done it, and this is just icing on the cake for him. And we've seen Dan Kirby run good all the way through this season. But let's bring in one Mr. Ross Smith. Let's get some insight into how this season has been overall for SGS, and let's talk about what might be coming. Ross, good evening, my friend. Well, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How's everybody here?
I'm not doing too bad. I won't speak for Paul or Nicholas. I'll let them say they're doing good. They haven't given me any indication otherwise, though. So let's talk about Atlanta here. Road Atlanta, Petit Le Mans, however you know it. This track is tiny.
It is, but it isn't. Certainly there with as many cars, we've got 34 drivers out there right now. There might be 35 once everything's settled going out. But it does mean that you encounter traffic a lot more often. But it's different in that you don't have too much in terms of the way that the overlap happens compared to some tracks. And because drivers are aware, like of the red zone and some of the other parts of the track where it's very difficult to pass or can be very problematic if you try. I think that just kind of puts a little extra buffer in place, and you see it in places like Long Beach where drivers know that you're going to have a bit tighter confines and everything, that they kind of take that into appreciation of what's going on around them, and they pay attention more. They don't take as many big risks, and so you see a little bit cleaner racing. Although I will say that doesn't guarantee that there won't be incidents, and certainly Road Atlanta is very familiar with it, as we've seen in real life, as we've seen in many of these races in the past year at CMS. So I would say look out for chaos. I think it'll probably be mostly okay in the beginning. And then as it goes along and we start to mix traffic up a little bit, tempers start to flare a little more, it's going to get a little bit spicier, and we'll see how things play out.
I want to kind of step back for a second and look at the season as a whole. Of course, the season's not done after today. We have one more round coming through. But as a whole, when you think all the way back to January, what were your expectations for this season of the modern series? Specifically the modern series. We'll save the historics for that. But what were your expectations for this modern series, and have they met or exceeded those expectations?
They're pretty high, and I would say that expectations have been met. It's between all counts. I mean, you look at both the development side and the racecraft and the driver's side. I mean, we have a lot of really great battles up and down the field. I know that some teams, some drivers came in a little bit later on, so that it hasn't been as tight as it probably could be for some of those championships. I mean, if everyone had started right at the beginning and been able to stick around for all the races, I think we'd see a very different picture in the championship. But overall, I mean, I think the racing has been pretty good. There have been a couple flashpoints. There's certainly been a lot of off-track banter around different things, but it's all been very good, very positive. The way that the cars have been developed from the Storm Gang side, and the feedback that's come from that and everything, it's been very positive. We've got tons of notes and a lot of great development happening as we go into 2025. So it's been great, and I think that it's only going to get better as we get all of the cars updated and we move to all Storm Gang cars. We get rid of all of the Studio 397 cars, and you're going to see even better parity and even better driving handling characteristics and racecraft and closer battles as we go into next year.
I'm really excited to see how next year goes through. Are there any changes to the cars going into these final two rounds? I know anytime we've talked, you've always said, we're always evaluating, we're always looking and making sure the cars are balanced out properly. And especially in the GT3s, there's been some conversation about different balances with different cars. Any changes that we should know about going into this round?
This round, no. Coming to Bahrain, possible. Because like you said, we're always looking at it and evaluating. As you mentioned before, the cars are listed as equal, and they really kind of are here. Some cars have advantages in spots that are probably going to develop over the race. You're going to see that some will emerge as having that better potential as tires wear out, as nerves wear out. I'm kind of thinking more of like the C8s and the Aston Martins in the GT3 side of things. I believe that they are going to probably be the most likely to rise to the top. And but like I said, it's Atlanta, and there's a lot that can happen as the sun goes down. So, I mean, nothing is guaranteed or written in stone. So keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, and Ross, last question for you, and I feel like this is just the question that we always have to ask. Where do you see yourself at the end of this race?
Hopefully still driving. It's been pretty light for practice between just domestic obligations and a couple developmental things that needed to happen within the mod. We're getting templates ready for 2025 with all the new cars being introduced. So hasn't really been a whole lot of behind the wheel action, but we feel at least somewhat comfortable with where we are with the car. So again, just kind of like with what's happening with the rest of the season, trying to enjoy the race for what it is, get my 100 in, so that way I can say that I was the first one to hit that 100 race mark for VWSC.
How far off are you from that 100, so I don't forget?
It is, I believe, I think it's the Alps race and the Historics, because we're doing it combined, Historic and Modern. But yeah, so about 3 races from now, four races from now, because we still have maybe 5 races. 5 races, including this one. Yeah.
Well, Ross, we'll look forward to seeing you hit that 100, and then we'll see if you retire your way into the booth here to listen to Paul Glover all broadcast long. But we're going to let you go finish up your warm-up. Just a couple minutes left to go, and good luck to you, Ross. Hopefully we'll talk to you later.
Hopefully not, because it probably means that it's going to be the middle of the race and something bad has happened. But yeah, I think you guys are going to have a great time. I just want to give a shout out to everyone who's come out today, to JPB, to Storm Gang Simulation for everything they're doing, and to CMS for being able to put together a great community.
Awesome. Big shout out to you, Ross, and hopefully we'll talk to you at the end of the race, not the middle.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks. All right, and let's bring in one Nicholas Hillebrand here as we're waiting on warm-up to end. And Nicholas, good evening, friend. How are you?
Hello. And yeah, I'm doing quite well. Can't complain. And much like Ross, very much looking forward to this race because, he pretty much already said everything that I want to say. Storm Gang puts a lot of fantastic work into these mods, in the development cycle. Honestly, like how much they pump out in content per year is absolutely mind-boggling. So yeah, it's just been great to follow the season along for this entire year, and to now be in the closing stages, it's a journey.
Yeah, it's been a long season, as I said earlier, starting all the way back with the exhibition round 0 in January, getting us all the way to here. It's weird to think that the year of 2024 is almost gone, and this is our penultimate round. So this is going to be interesting to see. I believe Paul has our starting order ready. Nicholas, we'll get into things here as this race goes. As we all know, VWSC, this is a race of endurance, not just a race of laps, even though we're running to a lap count today. But let's run down our grid here. Dan Kirby in first place with Timon Subic in second place. That will be your front row. Magnus Dahlgren in P3 and Ben Kesby in fourth place. Cameron Barker in P5 with Mike Bell running in 6th. Dan Herlock in 7th. And Jerry Chen will be your Hypercar AM pole position driver, starting 8th place on the grid here today. John Uyen in 9th with Luke Goodlife running the Goodlife in the top 10. Micah Locke in P11 and Scar Pope in 12th place here today. Moving forward to P13, it's Craig Pullen with Alexander Scholes in P14. George Angelidis will be starting back in 15th. He'll need to move forward a little bit with John Mayer in P16 today. 17th place, Adam Gray. Eric Monet in P18. Vinicius Gonzalez in P19. And Eduardo Benica will be your GT3 pole position driver in 20. Max Sunlap in P21. Ryan Paulbert Reyes in 22nd. Johnny Gutierrez in 23rd. And Vasilis Katarinakis in 24th place here today. From there, 25th is JT Tammy, Peter Meyer in 26th, Robert Strachan in 27th, and David Junt in 28th place. From there, 29th place is going to be one Mr. Gilles Lalonde with James Walker in 30th, Jamie Zalecki in 31st, and Ross Smith starting back in 32nd. And then from there, we're going to have one Mr. Mike Bice. We'll have Stephen Miller and then Stephen Bice. 35 cars on this grid for Road Atlanta. And I'm going to ask you now, Nicholas, because I'm curious to know, what's your bold prediction for the day?
My bold prediction for the day, someone will die in the S's. That's about as bold as a bland beer.
A given.
But yeah, basically, I think this is one of those tracks where you can't really make just like a normal prediction generally, simply because the track, the race around here it's always really, really dynamic, and especially with these, fantastic hypercars, you have such high speed differences sometimes. There's a good reason why the S's were spoken out as that red or, orange zone. So, yeah, I'm quite confident that these guys, can maneuver around the track very quickly, but as you only have like a limited spatial awareness in these cars, even with a virtual mirror, and then just do one move wrong, move over a little too early, a little bit too soon, hit the curb wrong, and very quickly there's a lot of chaos on the track. So I think we'll have to see this, bit by bit, so to say.
Bit by bit and lap by lap. Again, a reminder here for this Road Atlanta race today, the Petit Le Mans, as it is known in the real world. It is 100 laps of action here. Pace lap going through, so it's technically going to be running 101 laps, including this one pace lap. But running to a lap count this time, which we saw at Indy, I feel like introduced some slight mental changes, because people were running lap count and not necessarily thinking of time. Like I said, earlier, we're looking at about 2 hours of racing just under here with this 101 laps, 100 laps of action. But I don't know about you, but for me, there's a mental difference between looking at lap count versus time to go.
Yeah, I think with time in general, there's always this little, what would you say, a little mental escape window that you have, okay, I have to make a move now, but I still have 15 minutes to go, so I can always, try to sneak another lap through just at the end there. And, with a normal, with distance-based race scoring, it's 3 laps to go, and then it's over completely. And I think with some people that can really mess them up, just in their general race rhythm, just in trying to stay calm and stay focused, and yeah, we're getting started already.
Yeah, and here we go. The hypercars are coming around. That is led by Dan Kirby. Dan Kirby will get us going and will run us through into this orange zone, this action here for 100 laps around Road Atlanta, around this Petit Le Mans. We go through, we come around through, and they get their way through in the bottom right corner. Paul Glover has those GT3 cars up. They get across the start line, and there they go. That is going to be headed off by Eduardo Benica in the GT3s in that Aston Martin, and is going to get away well. Up in the front in the lead, Dan Kirby is getting away in that Porsche 963 very quickly, trying to pull some time out on Timon Subic, and you can see already pulling out almost a second as they come around here. Very, very clean starts early on from all drivers. Nobody really having a big moment early on, and we're all in the S's or through the S's as we stand one lap down.
Yeah, everyone's, fairly clean around there, I'd say. Of course, there's also a little bit of apprehension going through the S's the first time, but look at that. Just look at Dan Kirby now already coming into the final chicane. That's basically almost half a lap already, so a third of a lap already of a distance between the leader in GT and the hypercars. So we'll be getting lap traffic very, very quickly here, I think, and especially considering how big both classes are. Well, with the subclasses of Pro and M, just taken out of contention here for a moment, but just seeing how high the speed differences can be between these cars, just between hypercars and GT3s, I think we'll be having quite a lot of lapping action.
Yeah, it's once the grid mixes up, it will be an absolute mess, is what I'm worried about. That's where I think the traffic, and the S's and traffic come in together once we get that mixed up. And it's going to happen quicker than I think we've seen all season. The hypercars are running about 1:10 around this track, probably 1:11, 1:12 here in race pace. GT3s are running about 1:23. So we're going to see a significant close there very quickly into the class mix. And once we do that, all I can say is good luck keeping up, because I worry that it'll be a bit of action, because one of the things I've learned through the season is patience is a virtue of which hypercars tend to be very conservative with.
I mean, it's also really difficult thing to say, you know, because in the heat of the moment, you know, you're trying to lose as little time as possible. So, of course, when there's a gap, you know, you're trying to go for it. You're trying to very quickly make progress with that, because every second you spend lapping someone, it's basically a second lost for you. And, you know, sometimes you can lose the picture, basically. You know, that's obviously, you know, you're going to be losing a little bit of time, you know, maybe a second or two in that lapping process, but a repair is in fact about a couple minutes longer.
It really is, and that's something that, you know, you got to weigh the pros and cons as we go through the race, and drivers, you know, sometimes in the moment, the pros and the cons become a little blurred here. Dan Kirby in the lead still here against Timon Subic with Magnus Dahlgren there in P3. They are holding on and pretty steady through. Eduardo Benica just now coming down and is pretty well trying to take off here from Southern Lap, and it's 0.8 of a second. The gap there is trying to pull a gap. It's kind of ebbing and flowing, and I think here early on, we're going to see drivers sort of mix up different strategies. We're going to see some people drive a little bit harder than, oh, there is somebody well off right there. We jump with Cameron Barker. Who is that was sitting through? That was one of our hypercars. I believe that is Mike Bell sitting. So we'll find out in the background here, but somebody at the top of the hill spinning off.
Yeah, and I think we just got the confirmation that that was Mike Bell. So, yeah, it's a really difficult section of the track, and just in general, just a difficult section of corners as we get the replay here. Let us have a look. That seemed to be around the back end of turn 1, basically.
Gets a little too... Went a little too inside, and then it looks like clipped the curb a little bit to the outside, and it just upset the balance of the car. But look at that avoidance there from Herlock. Herlock just jerked the car to the side and was able to avoid. Man.
That was a quite close one.
That was a very, very close one. I'm glad to see... You know, I'm never happy to see a car spin, but I'm always happy if it's just a one-car solo spin with no damage, as opposed to half the field being taken out at turn 1. If I have to pick the lesser of two evils, I will pick a single-car spin with no wall contact all day.
Absolutely, and I mean, we saw that in real life already with Scott Pruitt, I think, in one of the older Acuras, the open cockpit ones from Extreme Speed Motorsport, that basically touched the outside curb, I think, and then I think even cut across like a little bit of traffic and completely just, you know, disintegrated the car on the right inside wall there. And, you know, it was really, really quite fortunate that Barker was that quick-witted and, you know, that quick on the inputs there as you come that around there again. Ooh.
Oh. Riding on board there, that was a certified code brown moment, but the pants need to make it another 93 laps. Luke Goodlife in Hypercar AM has already DNF'd, and Ross Smith has already DNF'd, according to my records. Looks like we're getting reports that Luke Goodlife blew his engine here early on. I don't know how you do that 7 laps in, but we'll see if we can figure that out. We have seen some cases through the season of accidentally double downshifting, and it just pops the motors. So I wonder if that's what happened here to Goodlife. Luke Goodlife not living a good life here 7 laps in.
Yeah, his engine not having the best life there. But yeah, sometimes it can even be just a slight hardware failure or something, or a software failure from the driver softwares for the wheels. So, you know, you just have this moment of, you know, when the driver software stutters a little bit and one downshift gets counted as 5. And yeah, no engine will like that.
I have had that happen once or twice. It's not fun. This is why we lost Ross Smith. I told Ross, I'm always glad we're racing in Sim World, because that's a rough hit from Ross. And he is gone. Hypercars are making their way through traffic. We made it to lap 7 before we started mixing up traffic here. I tell you what, this is the moment where I think everyone needs to sort of just hold your breath for a couple laps. This is where traffic is snaking its way through. This is Dan Kirby making his way around, and he's worked his way through a good chunk of the GT3 traffic at this point, and is continuing through. But look at the absolute hornet's nest of cars behind. That's a scary sight.
It's always something, really, really fun to watch from the outside, and on the inside, you're basically you're sweating bullets, so to say. And ooh, that is another bumpy right there. Slightly overcooking it into the first chicane after that crest, and
Monet saving it there. Honestly, that's a pretty good save if you're going to take the motorcycle runoff there. You might as well just do that and do that well. We jump back here, live pictures on board with Dan Herlock. Dan Herlock, you can see just for Hypercars how challenging it is to snake your way through that traffic, because it's just right there. And I think the other thing we haven't really touched on here, Nicholas, at this point, is the fact that this track is very, very... What am I trying to say? Very bumpy, very hilly. There's a lot of elevation change, and there's a lot of just up and down. You look at the track on paper, and you're like, okay, there's some chicanes, there's a couple of hairpins, blah, blah, blah. But then you look at how this track goes up and down as we check out this Kesby replay, and yeah, that's the other factor you have to consider, is how much that elevation change can upset the car, and Kesby got away with that one pretty well, I have to say.
Yeah, that could have ended a lot worse, especially knowing that gravel trap there that can kick in quite like a mule, and that was very, very lucky for him there that it didn't quite hit the car as hard there. Very easy to flip the car in that section, actually. But yeah, as you said, it's really one of these moments, when you're looking at the track map, you're thinking, okay, this corner, it doesn't look too complex. And then, you basically just look down the S's for the first time and you realize, oh, we're dropping down a waterfall.
It's riding on board here. It's a lot more difficult than it looks. It's very, very, very fun to drive. Don't get me wrong. It is a lot of fun to drive, but it's very... You got to have some guts to send the car 100%. You got to have the practice in. You got to be willing to take the risk to run through. They do track rentals here where you can take your street car and run it around. And it's something I've looked into. However, the fear of that specific point Katarinakis is going through makes me question if it's a good decision to take my car. That bottom of the hill and the top of the hill, too, out of the S is where Ross wrecked. It makes me question if that's a good decision.
I think as long as you go within a certain limit, it's fine. But in these situations, you're going over the crests, and a lot of squiggly wigglies out of there onto the back straight. Everyone's trying to put the power down, and even if you have a little bit of traction control there to help, this is still quite a lot of power that these cars are putting onto the road.
Yeah, the Hypercars have a lot they can put down, but sometimes just the grip of those tires doesn't stick through. Look at Kesby here, getting absolutely pressured, trying to go through that GT3 traffic down into turn 10, and hard on the brakes. The Mustang to the right-hand side says, you know what, I want no part of this. I have no interest in messing with these Hypercars. There's a brave send around a Mercedes, and Kesby gets caught behind the Mercedes out of the final corner, and that is going to give some breathing room here. But Kesby is going to be very frustrated, but that is the nature of running through when you got the mixed classes. You're trying to snake your way through traffic. You got to be safe, and sometimes they can play your defense. Steven Miller in the GT3 AMS has DNF. That is a big moment there to see Steven Miller out. We talked about the championship at the top of the broadcast. That is one to keep in your mind there for Steven Miller.
And we are already noticing quite some attrition rate as there's another car off in the background. And that's just one of these things, driving around this track, just by itself, maybe not that hard, but pushing around here, that's a whole different story once again. That might have been David Johns, if we might have seen that correctly, but I think we need some more confirmation for that first.
Let's see, there's the off there from the Aston Martin, and very clearly does not like the idea of a Michelin or Motul barrier there on the front stretch. I mean, personally, I don't I don't think Michelin tires are bad, but I mean, if that's your opinion of them, then so be it. I don't personally run Michelin tires, but obviously Michelin sponsors this. Kesby and Junt are absolutely having a time around here. We'll get another replay. Paul in the background is having a time. I warned you that there would be some crazy moments here coming through. Here's this replay with Kesby having a moment around, and onto it. This is David Junt, and almost pulling a Ross Smith and just ramping it off there at the top of the S's, and stopped on the side of the track. Thankfully, still not going. So, not thankfully still going, but unfortunately not going. David Junt has DNF'd out. Ben Kesby still snaking his way around traffic. Gets around the BMW that's painted in the Lexus livery, the a la carte IMSA style. And we continue around here. Ben Kesby is having a day here. You can see 55 seconds off to the leader. Yeah, this is some big action here. What happened to Kesby, though, is the $1 million question. And, well, that's what I call wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Same corner.
It's an absolute murderer, that corner. We're having quite a couple of casualties here right now. And that's just the problem, you know, you're trying to push hard, you know what's at stake. And of course, in this circuit, you know, as soon as the gap starts opening here, you're already panicking, basically. You know, you're trying to keep the gaps as close as possible. You're trying to go for the gaps that exist. Like Ayrton Senna so graciously said back then. And, well, then either the gaps close like that Mercedes did earlier in front of the hypercar, or you just, well, not quite able to make a gap, or the gap gets you, and that would be the gap between the track and the curb. Ooh.
And this is going to be mixed class fighting along with mixed car fighting. We've got Hypercar AM, and GT3 in the mix. This is a battle for P4. This is Herlock and Dahlgren. Herlock got around Dahlgren. Yellow Sector 2, that was somebody we just flew by, and I believe that's Timon Subic, who is now going backwards at the top of the S's. And Subic has had a big moment there as he drops. Oh, and there's Dahlgren spinning around. There's a big miss from, I believe that was Chin, actually, our Hypercar AM leader.
There was some collisions there. The Alpine driver was involved somehow there. I hope that we get another, like... That is one of those problems when we're just switching from the trackside camera angles. Luckily, we have amazing cameramen here, and can hopefully get a replay from another angle for that, but... Ooh. It's just one of these moments, you know, you're in this snaking formation down the hill, then you're having a little bit of a breather with that run down to the two right-handers, but all of a sudden, you know, it goes from very wide, from a lot of space to very little space, to a lot of space to very little space. It's this constant, almost breathing motion of this circuit, and all of a sudden there's, well, less gap than anticipated.
Yeah, and here we go. Hard on the brakes, we come through. Here's the right-hander, and then down on the brakes, taps the rear, and then I believe that just upset the front of the car, and then the brakes locked up, sent him around. That is a moment. George Angelides has had an off there in second place in Hypercar AM, 19 seconds away from the leader. Penalty for Meyer, which is interesting to see a penalty on lap 15. We're not even a quarter of the way through the race, so not a good sign to see a penalty handed out. Magnus Dahlgren, again, wiggling down on the brakes. The Hypercars are having a time here today. I do want to shout out YouTube chat here. I haven't said anything about YouTube chat today, but just know I do see you out there, specifically you, Benjamin Porteous Heath, saying, let's go Dan Herlock. At the moment, you're probably happy. Stacey Scott's game, given all of the statistics about the fun behind the scenes. And of course, we've got Kenny back there, we've got Bill out there, and I believe we've seen Mr. Reese somewhere. I saw him make a comment about McDonald's. I don't know what that was about, but yeah, I know Mr. Reese is out there, our secret in-race reporter, pit lane reporter there that will give us all the behind-the-scene news. And yeah, no, not secret at all, but he's never been in the booth, so I like to think of him as my little public secret. Subic having a moment here, and Nicholas, this is... Man, the bottom of the S's, all I can say.
Yeah, it's really, really tough because that inside curb is so high. Oh, there's a huge one there. So...
Who was that? That was...
I wonder if he was trying to avoid something, or maybe he had just caught a slide like that himself and then just ran out of road there. That was Barker, actually.
One of the Porsches here. Barker, we'll get a replay here going through. We'll jump and see, because that's the dangerous thing about spinning at the top of the S's, is if you come back on a track, there's nothing no. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Again, I'm so glad we're in a simulator. Man, yeah, nothing you can do going past the GT3, and again, I'm so glad we're in a simulator. However, I know some of these drivers have direct drive wheels, so hopefully everyone's okay. I have heard of some crazy moments happening with some crashes. We jump back with Magnus Dahlgren in 4th place going through here, and Nico, I gotta ask you here as we go around. We jump back with the GT3s here. This is James Walker, who is continuing on 6th place in our GT3 run with Lalonde behind, and they continue along. I gotta ask you, what class would you prefer to be right now in this mess? Would you rather be the Hypercar, or would you rather be the GT3?
Oh, that is a rough one. Personally, I always like to be in the speedy boys, so I love the Hypercars. It's one of my favorite classes in World Motorsport history, especially because, it basically brought us another golden age for endurance racing. Something that we haven't seen like it since quite literally Group C. And with, hybrid or non-hybrid with the possibilities, great. As there's some more action on the track as well. And I think, at least you have the illusion of a choice more, in a hypercar. You have a little bit more of an illusion of a choice whether you want to make a move that might kill you or not.
And speaking of moves that might kill you, here we go. Bottom of the S's. It's a Hypercar having a tap with one of the Bice brothers as they come around and go back through. And now they just continue running. And they go around. I mean, yeah. Big moment. Suvik's picked up a penalty. As it appears, we have some pit stops happening. Timon Suvik, first Hypercar in the pits, are one of our first drivers in the pits. And pitting earlier than we expected, only on lap 18. I thought they were going to make it till about lap 25.
Yeah, maybe try to go for a slightly offset pit strategy there. So there's still some possibilities to be a bit more free with those strategies there. But of course, it's these guys, also obviously right in the thick of it. They're looking how to try and get an ace out of it. And of course, with the traffic that you get and pick up when you're coming back out of the pit lane, it's always, worth a gamble in these situations.
It absolutely is worth a gamble. We saw one of the Hypercars that was spun around there on the track. I'm trying to tell exactly who that was. It was one of our lime green Hypercars. It's Craig Pullen who has DNF'd out here. And let's get this replay very quickly up. Shout out to Paul, and I think he gets a little bit of help from... I don't know if there was contact, but there was wall contact. Don't know if Aston hit him there. Potentially Benica. I'm not sure, though, as we have several Aston Martins through the field. As we've talked about, Aston Martins, very, very popular in the GT3 category. As we see in Hypercars, got to be careful going down the hill as they have so much speed and not enough time through. Little bit of info from Ross in the YouTube chat. Said it didn't turn, caught the biggest rock in the sand trap and sent it into the wall. So that is what he is saying happened to his car. So we know that sand trap in the S's, you hit that the wrong way, and I think you're just absolutely having a bad time here.
Yeah, and that's what I said, the gravel trap is quite deep, the oscillations in it are quite hard, so you just hit that slightly wrong, and yeah, it's basically going to spit you out like a baby that hates its food.
That it will. Magnus Dahlgren in the pits now, our next Hypercar to go through, and I do want to point out Magnus Dahlgren actually has the fastest lap in that Alpine A424 with a 1:09.3. Fastest lap overall in this race so far, and is very, very, very quick here. Currently, our leader is Dan Kirby. Pit stop cycles are commencing, though, so just take everything you see on screen with a little bit of a grain of salt for the next couple of minutes in Hypercar. Sweet see Chills Lalonde in the middle of a mix there. trying to make it around, absolutely sending it through, sending it on. Our leader currently in the lead by 26 seconds, Dan Kirby to John Uyen in Hypercar. Jerry Chen in third place in Hypercar. AM is the lead in Hypercar AM, but third place overall. That is always weird for me to phrase for some reason, but I got that out, and that is through, and he is 25 seconds ahead of George Angelides. John Uyen, oh, there's Lalonde with a big off on your screen as John Uyen is looking to go in the pits.
And well, we're seeing more and more of these errors already. I think these guys are, very, very stressed right now, especially before the first pit phase. It's this entire starting phase, everyone is on the top of their nerves right now. They are obviously, you don't win a race in the first stint. You can lose it for sure, as we saw with a couple of guys, unfortunately, already. But these guys, they will try to push everything out as long as they're still guaranteed to be close to their opponents. But as we have our race leader come in for the first stop, these guys, they have to try and calm it down. And I think naturally they will, as soon as they're done with this first pit stop, basically just to get that out of their system, to get this, early race excitement out of their system.
Absolutely going to be important to get that early race excitement out. I'm glad we're following a couple of these hypercars into the pits, because one of the things that we didn't touch on at all, and I haven't really factored it into the thought process, is how difficult that pit lane entry is. It's the inside of the final corner, downhill, hard to the inside, you run through, and then you got to slow that car way down for a very, very narrow pit entry. Here we go with Scholes going through. He's a little over the yellow line, but I don't think that will be a problem as we continue around. We've gotten 20 laps down, 80 laps remaining. George Angelides into the pits here in the Acura, and is going to be in for, I would anticipate, full. Oh, and there's the pit lane. There's the pit lane dangerous. That's John Mayer, who was facing backwards there and is going to have a very hard time getting that car to Austin Powers 27 pointed, and let's just bring a traffic cone with us, why don't we?
Yeah, I did think for a moment if that was a ripped off piece of suspension, but luckily for him, the car seems to be relatively intact. Maybe a few minor scratches here and there, but it seems to be overall still fairly decently intact. So luckily can carry on and, live to fight another day.
Yeah, and we'll pull up a quick replay again. I feel like I just commentary cursed this. I said this pit entry is rough. You see he runs a little wide, and then it looks like just locks up the axle on braking, actually. And then trying to come around, and again, that Austin Powers forward, backward. So, and then I don't know what the traffic cone did to him, but in that shot, the traffic cone didn't go with him, but we saw the traffic cone go with him. So we see what happens there. Dan Kirby, we see just absolutely carving this track up after pit stop, still 6 seconds ahead of Dan Herlock, and continuing to just kind of run the day here. No questions, no challenges, and just really, it seems like a nice little Saturday cruise in a extremely powerful Porsche.
Yeah, and I think for him, it's basically just, keep running error-free, keep running just inside your comfort zone, because that's the best he can do right now. As soon as you're in that rhythm around Road Atlanta, I think that's one of the big things that you have to be good at, just finding your own rhythm. Don't pay too much attention around the cars around you. Just, ignore all the drama going on. Try to, avoid all the drama you can, and just keep it calm, keep it simple.
I think interesting in that idea of keep it calm to see the Hypercar AMs kind of peek their way away from the Hypercar Pros sometimes. They kind of act like a little overpowered GT3 in certain situations where they just move out of the way of the Hypercar Pros. I like seeing that in that sort of class setup. They don't have to do that. For full transparency, there is nothing in the rulebook that says they are required to just pull over and get out of the way of the Hypercar Pros. They can fight them in that battle and try to stay up in the lead lap as hard as they want, but they're not, which I appreciate, because it shows a little bit of knowledge and sportsmanship to them to say, you know what, the Hypercar behind me is faster, I'm not in your fight, let's get this out of the way and get it done here. As Magnus Dahlgren flings his way around a GT3 up the hill and down the S's. Again, these laps are probably the shortest that we've ran all season. Without me double checking that stat, I'm going to tell you that stat. 1 minute 10 is the average time on the leaderboard right now for the fastest laps here, and they're running on average about 1:11s right now on current laps. GT3s are running about 1:19, 1:20 for their fastest laps. Adam Gray into the wall. Man, I feel like we're going to see this all night.
That is the big problem here. You know, you overcook it slightly and very, very quickly it just goes around on you and into the wall. Now with Magnus Dahlgren again for another fight here. So these two guys for overall third place just got past John Uyan, but I do not think that Uyan is going to be quite done with that yet. He's going to want to fight back against him. And obviously, you know, you have a lot of overtaking opportunities here, but you have to know how to use them.
And John Uyan is no slouch behind the wheel here and will very quickly, I feel, get to the back of Magnus Dahlgren, continue a fight along, and will keep pushing through. Herlock is very rapidly closing the gap to Dan Kirby up front, so keep your eye on that leaderboard and see if that gap closes back. And as soon as I say it, it opens up by half a second. So maybe don't listen to me here. Magnus Dahlgren up the S's, continuing to go very quick, and will keep the run here. Uyan falling back by 2 seconds as Magnus Dahlgren has just opened the wheel here and go through. Eric Mornay has picked up a pit. There's a hypercar around. Dahlgren avoids him, and Uyan is just going to cruise through. That is one of our hypercar AMs, I believe, that is just off to the side. We'll double check who that is. That is Mr. Goncalves, Vinicius Goncalves, currently last place in hypercar AM. And what happened to him? Well, Paul is faster than me, so let's get the replay up here. And Nicholas, this is a solo car spin, it appears. Rear axle locking, sending him around. Maybe not the rear axle locking, but rear axle at least losing grip.
I think he might have just been trying to follow trying to slightly alternate the line to the GT and just slightly messed up the turn in the rear end. You know, if you're also like going onto the marbles, you know, even a little bit, you know, these cars aren't always too fond of that. So, you know, maybe just the car reminding him a little bit, you know, okay, buddy, we have to be on the racing line there because these tires don't have grip there.
It is interesting to see when the hypercars try to go offline. The GT3s can do that all day and have no issue. The hypercars are very, very finicky, is the best phrase I have for that. Very finicky, and they're very particular in where they want to be on track, what they want to do on track. And they will let you know in one way or another if you are doing something they don't like here. Stephen Miller in fourth place in the GT3 AMs is running through and just keeping that car on track, keeping pace going. And sometimes in a race, that's all you got to do is just keep the car on track, keep it moving here. Hypercar very quickly approaching. You see Steven stays on the line. The hypercar will just send it up the inside and very quickly get around before they even get to turn one to start that run down the S's. And very good run. It's kind of surprising at this point that, you know, there's some people that are really showing good pace. Stephen Miller, you are under some pressure and you don't even know it, my friend. Oh, hypercars, patience. Again, things that don't really go together, but that is the 111 of Uyan that is sending it around and still trying to chase down Dahlgren ahead.
Yeah, and that was one of these situations. You know, Uyan saw him go just completely fly past. You know, Dahlgren saw a gap, went for it, perfectly executed there. And then Uyan was thinking, okay, I can do the same thing. Oh, maybe not. You know, just having to back out at the last moment there, simply with those speed differences that just catch you off guard completely sometimes.
A little bit of miscommunication there, as it looks like Stephen Miller was going to go to the right, and the hypercar also wanted to go the same way, and now they come through. That's one of the Crown Dental Ferraris that has sent their way through, and then that is going to be one of the hypercar Am Mistrals that is behind that. I'm not sure if that is going to be Chen or Angelitas. I believe that is Chen, looking at the number on the front, and it is Jerry Chen who sends it around there. Continue through and just move his way along. Jerry Chen currently in the lead by 23 seconds over Scar Pope and another 10 seconds back to Angelita. Something somewhere with Herlock has just absolutely opened up, and I'm going to be honest, I kind of think it's just Kirby's raw pace here, because Dan Kirby, last lap, 1:12.2. And Paul is telling me I'm wrong, Nicholas, so...
Some banter behind the scenes going on here as well.
We'll get the replay of what happened to Herlock here that opened this gap up to 22 seconds. And turn one kicks it around. Look at the slow-mo car control here. Yanks the wheel to the right. And we're going to remember the words of the old fabulous Hudson Hornet here. If you find yourself going hard enough right... Oh, never mind. I'll just forget what Hudson Hornet said, because I don't think he planned for you to slam the back end of the car into the wall.
Yeah, he didn't turn enough to the right to go left. Oh well, too much to the left too, and then went left again. You know, it's a circle.
I'm really shocked that car is still on track, to be honest. That was a good little whack. I really am shocked that car is on track here. Dan Herlock through. We've got GT3s going into the pits now, so plenty of action up and down the field. GT3s starting their first pit stops here. Lap 30, so you do the math on that. If they're hitting lap 28, 29, well, they might have to do a splash and dash near the end here. Herlock 21 seconds. Magnus Dahlgren is closing this gap on Herlock, so we'll see what happens. Reyes putting in a 120.3, now your best time in GT3 AM, 38-second lead over Steven Bice, which is a pretty significant lead down there in GT3 AM. Started on pole, running in pole. Benica was on pole in GT3, but it's now JT Tammy in the lead, but JT Tammy still needs to make a pit stop, so technically your leader in GT3 still Eduardo Benica. Seems like if you started on pole, you're in a pretty good position.
Yeah, generally, and basically just start on pole, stay out of trouble. That's just the old, you know, very well transitioning formula. You know, it's never really wrong to, have no one in front of you, but you have to be able to translate it into the start as well, and that's where a lot of people actually do struggle, I think. But now, John Uyen lost out a little bit to Dahlgren through traffic, but now there's another car behind that. And that looks like a Ferrari to me.
Yeah, on board in the bottom right. Michael Locke, look at the avoidance of the GT3 there. Having a dip a wheel into the grass, gets away well, and now this is going to be John Uyen trying to run away from Michael Locke, because this is your battle for fourth place overall. 7 seconds ahead to John Uyen, but the gap from John Uyen to Michael Locke is 1.7 seconds, and rapidly closing at this rate. They went through the traffic. John Uyen has a little bit of a breath of fresh air. There is an Aston Martin ahead, though, and he's meeting the Aston Martin at not so ideal of a time here, depending on if he can pass him on the front stretch here as we dive out of the final corner.
Yeah, it's just this section here especially, you know, it's where the track closes down immensely from 2 or 3 lines that you might be able to do down to pretty much, well, 1, maybe half a line. And, you know, I guess Uyen got a little bit lucky there that he was able to catch the Aston right after that apex, because that apex, especially with the very high inside curb, you can't really do too much there in cases of lapping.
You can't at all. Mike Bell we're on board with, because Mike Bell has closed the gap there to Michael Locke. We've got a yellow flag through, and I believe that is for Adam Gray here. And I see that Eduardo Benica has DNF'd, our leader in GT3 has DNF'd. We'll see if we can find what happened to him there. But plenty of moments going. We have this case where it, again, I contribute this to running to a lap count and not to a timer. If we said 2-hour Petite Le Mans, right? I think the drivers would dial this back about 5% because they know they have to make it 2 hours. I think when you say 100 laps, you're looking at that lap counter and you're thinking, oh no, I only have 70 laps to go. Oh no, I only have 65 laps to go. And you push a bit more, you take more risk that you would otherwise. I think it's a different mentality. And it's interesting to see how it affects the drivers. Eduardo Benica here, we'll see if we can find what happened. This is actually Cameron Barker's moment here. What happened to Barker? And it looks like same corner. And the GT3 avoiding the hypercar, running off to avoid another hypercar inside, and that's a spin as well. Trying to hold on to it in the grass, trying to avoid Cameron Barker, and then just gets in the grass, spins through there. I mean, you got to feel for him. Eduardo Benica, we believe a technical issue. Adam Gray was the other car that spun. We'll see what happened with Eduardo Benica if we can get a little bit of info through. We think maybe a technical issue. We haven't seen any sort of an incident. That's a GT3, though, that's just absolutely tearing up the dirt. That's one of the Bice brothers who is going through. That is Mike Bice, who has just sent it through grass, and it looks like it's just stopped off the side now, letting the traffic go through. Very good decision there from Mike Bice to very safely stay out of the way.
And we're seeing it here now again in the replay, and I'd say that is one of those things, you know, these hypercars, they're so direct. You know, they are incredibly... Ooh, that is a clenched buttocks, even as a spectator there. You know, these cars are so direct, so fast, so when something unexpected happens, you try to correct it. It's so easy to overcorrect these cars, and, well, then just find the wrong end around, and, well... a very big case of Code Brown, you know, making a mess of you.
And we see John Uyen here still continuing to try to hold off Bell. He was trying to chase down Dahlgren. Mike Bell is going to be looking there to the inside, drag race through, and good pass there. Bell into fourth, and John Uyen through. We're trying to tell what happened with Mike Bice. It looks like he had some issues there. We saw him run through the grass and into the dirt. We're not sure what's happened to him from there. He's in the pit lane now, so we're not sure what's happened for him. And as I say that, Paul Glover loves to find things right as I'm questioning it. And here is our replay of what happened with Mike Bice. This is down into the S's. There's a snap around, and, well... I'm gonna guess. Well, the car is crabbing like it's an electric Hummer, and that's not at all what you want to see. So that is a front end suspension absolutely destroyed. Yeah, Nico, he's trying to stay out of the way and make it back to the pits, which was the good decision, but that car is crabbing about 20 degrees over. It looks like a NASCAR race car, honestly, not a Corvette.
Yeah, I was going to say, that looks like one of those massively crabbing ones that first raced at Charlotte in, like, the mid-2000s, where it literally looks like the chassis is, like, mounted on wrong, and somehow it turned out to be way faster. I don't think this is faster, though.
It's not around here. However, I have a feeling if we took it to Daytona, he might have a good time. Still not what I recommend. John Uyen now down into sixth as Michael Locke has made his way past here, and something has happened with Zalecki here. We'll get a quick replay of what happened with Jamie Zalecki, and judging by the reaction from Paul Glover in my ear, something we're not very happy with. Ooh.
That's that high inside curb that I mentioned earlier. You just hit that slightly, even like remotely slightly, and just gets, you know, slightly set off to the left, does a little bit of a hip bump, then ooh, okay. But I have to say that NSX there could have reacted a little bit better with the rejoin, because I would have had an absolute panic attack there if I was in one of those oncoming cars.
I absolutely agree with that. Stacy asking in YouTube chat, which Bice was that? That was Mike Bice that had the problem we saw that went sideways in the wall and then looked like a stock car. John Uyen in sixth place now, dropping down. Dan Herlock into the pits again. So Hypercars on lap 36 making stop number 2. So I would do the math and say probably they might be on track for 5 pit stops at this rate, depending on how they're running. But Dan Herlock in through there. The Isoda, of course, not seeming good on fuel, but seems pretty quick. JT Tammy here down the S's in second place in GT3 behind Southern Lap by 13.7 seconds. seems to be just kind of cruising along, and everyone is just, I think this is the game of survival. I think everyone has kind of got it in their mind that this is going to be a longer race, and they're realizing the lap count is a little deceptive. I think they've settled it in, and I think they are just breathing at this point, running to the Delta and doing the endurance race things here, Nico, of just running your endurance race.
You know, you addressed it a couple of times with pretty much how, you know, the entire, like, rhythm for, like, a lap race can be different than, you know, a timed race. I think it can actually be the other way around. Not that you're thinking, okay, it's only, like, 70 laps left. It's more like, okay, it's still 70 laps left, you know, I don't have to push fully on the limit, and then while you're relaxing, you can very quickly grow complacent. Ooh, God, that was
Oh, and
there's buttocks, and it gets worse apparently.
This is on board with James Walker. There's a hypercar to the right-hand side.
Ooh.
And, is that Adam Gray? That's the number 44.
The number 44.
That is indeed Adam Gray that just, I mean, sends him off through the S's. And remember, the S's are a red zone. So, I do want to remind everyone here, Nico, that the S's are called a red zone here. So think of it like an orange zone where the first half of our first lap is, you know, more harshly scrutinized. But the red zone, you know, that's the entire race. You cause something there, and the stewards don't just kind of give you a tap on the shoulder. They just go ahead, warm up the hand, and smack you across the face if you cause any issues through here. I worry that Adam Gray might be in for a little bit of a conversation after this race.
Yeah, that might get more than a slap on the wrist, though luckily there wasn't a big contact, you know, so it was, you know, luck in bad luck, as it would be, like, quite literally translated from German in the saying. Yeah, it's not ideal.
And we still have more drivers dropping, so this race is really, really becoming challenging as they go. So we continue along here around. This is JT Tammy that you see on your screen with Gutierrez in the Mustang. This is the battle for second place overall in the LMGT3s as they go around, and you see JT Tammy a little bit of a wiggle there. Gutierrez is very nice and smooth through the S's. You can see the difference there, that Mustang holding on. The Aston Martin getting a little wiggly, but still managing to make its way through.
And that's one of these wonderful cases where you can see the differences in the car still, you know? So overall pace-wise, you know, they are pretty similar, you know, the guys have said, you know, there's no car that has, like, a definitive advantage here, but there's still, you know, these own characteristics that each car brings to the table. And for example, you know, just like as an extreme example, you know, front engine versus rear engine, you know, completely different handling. As we now have a move coming on here, going down the inside and, well, just making short progress with that. Flying past the inside and then slotting on in front. Perfect.
And then the hypercar very quickly working through the final corner says, you know what? This is a battle for position. I want no part of this. Get out of the way and get me away. And does very well. Johnny Gutierrez in the Mustang in second place. And I'm looking at the stats between the Aston Martin and the Ford Mustang. For those of you that are curious, 535 horsepower in the Aston Martin, 500 in the Mustang, a 5-liter V8 in the Ford Mustang with a 4-liter twin turbo in the Aston Martin. And they tend to be very similar in handling characteristics. They're very similar in weight, of course. I'm kind of just looking at some different stats. We've got a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look where I can look at some different info here. But the Mustang, on paper, should not be beating the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin should have a slight advantage there, and surprisingly, Johnny Gutierrez being able to make the car run through and saying, you know what, I can run this Mustang faster than any other GT3, and let me just prove it. But 10.4 seconds to Southern lap, and that will be the big decider for me on if that Mustang can run through. Look at in the background there, that is going to be JT Tammy getting past one of the Bice Corvettes there in the AM class and doing very well to do that into turn 10. Now, mind the hypercars as they come through, and that is going to be the big action there. And as pointed out in my ear, really the hypercars need to be watching, but we all know hypercars. Again, hypercar and patience, it's hard to put them in the same sentence some days.
Now we have a replay with Mike Bell here. And he did have a squirrely moment in just this situation before, just a little bit before the S's, but just going a little bit of an, alternative line there. Not quite able to pick the motorcycle or the normal race circuit layout. And, choosing the best of both worlds, so to say.
Yeah, and, honestly, if you're going to lose it there, if you can just get onto that motorcycle run, you're probably going to be okay. Johnny Gutierrez, though, really doesn't have a runoff option here down the back straight, as you have the fun of the hypercars, and there's a miscommunication in the hypercar into the wall as Gutierrez was trying to get to the right. The hypercar wanted to go to the right, and it looks like that's just a little bit of miscommunication between the two on who wanted to go where. The hypercar hard into the wall, and I don't put any fault on Gutierrez. The hypercar went for the gap that was closing. And this is going to be... Yeah, I believe that was Lalonde, if I'm not mistaken. And this is Lalonde going around.
The next victim of that corner.
How many victims of the S's are we going to have here today?
I mean, we're almost in the double digits, I think.
Well, there's another one on the front edge of your screen. I'm not sure which hypercar that was, but another person running off in the S's. Yeah, I don't know the final number that we're going to have, but it's pretty significant. We might ask Ross if he's done the math on it. And we did double check that was Gutierrez that made the contact with the hypercar here down the backstretch. Still not sure which hypercar that was, but we know it was one of our hypercars. And Scar is now what we have. Let's get this on board really quick so you can see. I mean, he's going to the right at the top of the hill, and I think the sign just made that worse, honestly, Nico. I don't know if I put any fault on Gutierrez for that one.
Yeah, I think it was just, bad situation. You have these insanely high closing speeds, as I mentioned earlier already, and at a certain point, it's like it's basically like you learn in driving school. You're on the motorway, you look in the rear view mirror, you see the car further away, and then thinking, okay, it's not that bad. And in the case of Germany, you don't have a speed limit, so all of a sudden that car that was quite a bit away in the rear view mirror all of a sudden is inside your rear view mirror, but more in the literal sense.
See here on the state side, we'll get this replay of Magnus Dahlgren really quick. This is the car we saw run off in the S's. You see trying to go around the slower Mistral hypercar, and a little bit of contact there, more contact there, and then Dahlgren running worse off. You see now flashing the lights coming up the hill after that contact, kind of just the equivalent to throwing the hands up and saying, what was that? Stateside, we have speed limits. People don't obey them, but also stateside, people don't obey what lane they should stay in. So people just kind of are all over the place doing whatever speed they go. I envy you with no speed limits in Germany.
It's very nice, obviously, you burn a lot more fuel, but it's nice to have the option, which is why I'm a proponent to keep the no speed limit rule. So just in case you want to get somewhere quickly, it's just very handy to have the option.
I can imagine. So I'd love to try that sometime. But again, if you've ever seen the way an Ohio driver or a Tennessee driver drives, you would understand why no speed limits are a horrible decision stateside, because they can hardly go the speed limit to begin with, let alone going anything above a speed limit or in a way that makes sense or using a turn signal. Let's get a replay up here, and this is going to be that number 40 yet again. Here we go around, and that is another victim of the S's.
Another one.
Another one bites the dust, or DJ Khaled, another one. Pick your poison. Eric Monet, our latest victim of the S's here. Johnny Gutierrez, yet again, getting passed by another hypercar. That is going to be the 376 of Ben Kesby going around. Here's Jamie Zalecki, who is just trying to carve through some traffic and get fought through some traffic at this point, going around. He indeed is the traffic as we stand back in the background. Believe that is Dan Kirby who might be going around through. Can't tell for sure, but we can see that Jamie Zalecki is running this Acura nice and smooth and consistent. A little bit of a moment there at the top of the hill as he tries to chase down Gilles Lalonde. Dan Kirby has been in and out of the pits at this point, still maintains a 13-second lead. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a Dan Kirby fan in the chat, it's probably a good day for you. 13.5 seconds, Dan Kirby in the lead, even after both him and Herlock have been in the pits, and that gap has been opening significantly, and it's continuing to go around and through and out and up and down and all the ways. Who can bring it to Dan Kirby in this race? Well, we're approaching half race distance, so Nico, I'm going to tell you the answer is nobody.
I think the real challenge for Kirby will be, just to stay focused the entire race, because as I mentioned, the biggest danger in these longer races, in these lap distance based races, you are constantly just fighting against complacency mentally, because you're thinking, okay, it's still a long time to go, it's not that important right now, la la la, and all of a sudden it's, oh, this is a 4-minute repair, this is not great.
You mean you wouldn't be running this race if you're Dan Kirby in the front and just race one-handed and then watch TikTok with the Jamie Zalecki, almost our next victim of the S's, catches it there at the top of the hill, and it's going to continue through. You mean George has lost P2 in Hypercar AM. Scar Pope now has that. But hold on, Nico. You're telling me that you wouldn't, if you're Dan Kirby right now with a 13-second lead, you wouldn't just watch TikTok with one hand and drive the car with the other hand? Do we think he's focusing, or do we think he's Saturday cruising, watching TikTok, and I don't know what else he'd be doing. Probably watching the F1 sprint race, if it's even still running at this point.
I'd say that's, he's still probably focused. He doesn't have to go on the limit, so he doesn't have to be as focused. Because, a 12-second gap, it's nice, because you can pick which gap you want to go for. You can pick and choose, which risks to take and which ones to leave, for your opponents to take and then, die on. But he's still going to have to be, alert. There's a difference between pushing on the limit and still being alert on the circuit. And as Jolyon Palmer said, you always have to be alert on a street circuit, but that always translates to road circuits and even ovals as well. You always have to be alert on a racing circuit, full stop.
You do. I would agree with that. Max Sundenlap. Wow, I'm struggling with names. He's doing good to hold the lead here right now. Is he in the class lead is the million-dollar question here. And currently, he's 71 seconds goes back to James Walker, who's pitted. He is in the lead currently. I'm not sure if he's actually in the lead or just on the track on the lead here, with pit stops mixing things up. He might actually get in and out of the pits here and still hold on to the lead just barely. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Nico, this is where strategy comes into play, and where, depending on how much fuel you want to take, if you want to do stuff. This is what I talked about earlier with some people maybe trying to cheat the pit stop system. I think Mac might be one of those drivers that's trying to cheat a little bit, not even cheat, but just game the pit stop system to save some time that way.
And just in general, I think these guys are just trying to find a potential, maximization right now of the current status quo. They can see, how much some of the gaps are, at this point maybe they're just thinking, okay, maybe I can instead close the gap by, just trying to save a bit more fuel and traffic, trying to just try anything alternatively to just not have to, constantly push for this entire race, and then think about is splash and dash. There we are. Sorry, that was English language for German native. That is an awful combination.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to try to say German as an Englishman, so I'll forgive you on that one. YouTube chat, however, may have questions. We'll leave that up to them. And if you have questions, please direct those to James Parfit the next time he is on a broadcast. Somebody off into the grass. That was one of our Mustangs. Hard to say which one that was, though. I'd like to lean in to say it's Gutierrez, but I could be completely wrong. We check in with Eric Monet here in 5th place, who is trying to hold off Goncalves in 6th place. They run through very, very close together. Up the hill, down the hill. Goncalves has been closing this gap for several laps now. We're approaching half race distance. At this point, Nico, it's the downhill run. And I have to ask you, as a driver, when you know you're hitting that downhill run point, how do you not mess it up?
Well, you really have to look at, just constantly hitting your mouse, being alert, and keeping the car stable. And there's a bit of a longer replay here. That is one of the Mustangs that, misses their braking completely. Then Honda flies by, and I guess that's just, an easy way to gain a position in this situation.
I mean, if you're going to give me a free place, I might as well take it. I believe that was Lalonde who ran things off there in the Mustang. Here's Goncalves again, just pushing, trying to get that 5th place. But Nico, not to cut you off there, again, what do you do?
Pretty much. It's a very nice thing here because in this situation at Road Atlanta, you're trying to accelerate. You're going downhill, so gravity's helping you along the way. Having a nice little fun ride down, and as soon in the actual main braking zone, you're going back uphill again. So main thing is just keep focused on your line, stay out of the marbles, and look at traffic like we have here right now. Ooh, that looked like a big squiggle again. Ooh. And as I was about to say, then you just have to watch out for the crest over that hill that has claimed so many cars at this point already. We just see something here again. I do feel we are a little bit cursed this evening.
It really does feel like it, doesn't it? We're riding on board with Goncalves here, who is trying to chase down Eric Monet, and they just ran past one of the Bice brothers. They continue around here, but I think it's interesting to see how they just followed that Aston Martin all the way down the S's and back up. They didn't, really look at anything crazy. They didn't try any daring moves. Now, here's a daring move, though, into turn 1 as they go through, and we've got more pit stops cycling through, more things going around. There's a GT3 coming out, and Goncalves gets caught up behind the GT3, behind the Aston Martin, and that is going to absolutely give Monet a bit of breathing room here. This is not what Goncalves wanted, to get behind a GT3 who literally just came out of the pits.
And that's always this tricky situation. The pit exit is, in the best place that you could put it. Like the old pit lane was on the outside, so you will basically get spit out right in front of very fast traffic on the outside onto the racing line. And up here, it's quite nice comparatively, but at the same time, when there's a GT coming out, it's about a 50% chance that it's just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And someone, even if you as the GT, you didn't do anything wrong, you literally just came out of the pit lane, someone will be sighing very heavily behind you in a hypercar.
That they will replay here. This is going to be Michael Locke, who has decided to spin like a ballerina, and yet again, bottom of the S's in that Crown Dental Ferrari, brings it around backwards, and it looks like actually catches it and gets well out of the way before anyone else can come through. I have to give credit to that heads up of I'm in a very horrible spot, and let me just go ahead and run this car in the dirt. That's what I call heads up driving at officially half race distance.
Yeah, and it's quite good awareness as well. Just obviously you try to keep it on track, but as soon as these situations happen, when the car's going around, you're not quite sure where you'll end up in the end. it's just safer to just, remove yourself from the situation, to just make the space clean and okay. A lot of traffic here all of a sudden as we're getting onto the back straight. Are we gonna have a 3 wide? No, not quite as it seems, but 3 Porsches still heading in a pack.
Yeah, Adam Gray there on the left is down lap, so should be staying well out of the way. Looks like he did a fairly good job of that, but again, Goncalves being given a bit of a breathing room. Something's happened to Zalecki here. What is going on? We're losing cars like flies here, Nico. We're losing another car as it goes. We'll see if we can get a replay up here in just a moment of what happened to Zalecki, as that is our next DNF here on this race and the 5th DNF of the day.
I'm gonna be honest, with all the drama that's happened so far, with quite a few even big crashes, I'm surprised that we only lost 5 cars so far. We did, however, just get news that Robert Strachan got a penalty. Not quite sure what that is about yet, but I'm sure we'll find out eventually.
What was Zalecki doing right there? That was a weird moment for Zalecki. That seemed like a throttle stick almost.
Yeah, it kind of did, didn't it? I think it could also be like a little bit of frustration at that point, especially with, something like a throttle stick on. Nothing you can really do at that point. I actually had that a couple of weeks ago myself, racing, and my throttle spring actually snapped. So all of a sudden you try to hold back your throttle from falling back down, and just especially on an H-pattern car then, when you're driving it, and the throttle just falls down, it instantly just blows up your engine, and it's a frustrating experience, so I can understand, just putting the car to the side then.
Yeah, so that was Zalecki earlier in the lap, and then we follow through. And this was later in the lap, so he goes through and the car just snaps the other way, and then he just doesn't stop, and then he had this moment in the S's, so I almost wonder if he didn't pick up damage that's just like irreversible. Well, that one wasn't too bad. That was just a little bit of and then it got a little bit worse. And then he continued on and had the spin that we saw earlier, and then the 3rd spin. So I don't know what that was for Zalecki. There was some sort of a moment, but that has dropped him out. He is our 5th DNF of the day. Yellow flags still being thrown around everywhere. Drivers really trying to come to grips with this track. JT Tammy, our next victim here of spinning through and going around. And we have, again, Hypercars into the pits for the 3rd time here going in. We are running on lap 55 of 101. We've officially crossed that half race distance by a couple of laps now, and we are looking at a battle for P1 in GT3.
Yeah, that is a quite nice change of pace here. Of course, always even nicer, to have the battles in combination with traffic, but that is a very, very, well, I wouldn't say scared, but still a more on edge looking Johnny Gutierrez in the Ford Mustang there, especially coming through traffic right now, and especially in the S's. You know that you have to be extra careful here, but nevertheless, you don't want to get held up there, especially because in these S's you really gain and lose quite a lot of time. And that is Summerlap actually making his way through there into the first of the 2 right-handers after that.
And now you need to watch out for Stephen Miller there in that green car just ahead of them. They're going to be bumper to bumper. Watch the Hypercars through. Again, I know we're in a Ford, but this is not bump drafting. We're not running a NASCAR track. We are in Georgia. We are near Atlanta, but we're not running a restrictor plate race. And there is Gutierrez getting the pass back through. Southern Lap not looking for the switchback, but is right there in the action. This is going to be Mustang versus Corvette. You can't write it better. Ford versus Chevy. They come around the final corner. Sun is starting to set. Track is going to start changing, and we are going to be running late into the night with this one. They go around. Let's hop on board with Southern Lap for a lap of this Southern-based track as they are still trying to get past Miller. Miller not giving any room here. And look at that. Gutierrez just forces the issue. Southern Lap is going to say, you know what? I will get my way through, though. And it looks like Miller is now behind, but that has given a bit of breathing room to Gutierrez for at least the moment.
Yeah, at least for the moment. And we did see, though, how quickly that gap did shrink there for a moment. And I'd still say that's almost within slipstream range, especially closing in through the first right-hand, and now the second one even more. I think if he gets a good exit here, and it seems like it's pretty clean, that is, again, almost striking distance with slipstream there as the hypercars are starting to fly past again. And my goodness, that speed difference. This is luckily only on the straight, but you see how much faster those hypercars are, especially in the faster sections, especially with, well, you know.
I think it's interesting when we ride on board with a GT3 that is following a hypercar and the hypercar gets past, but then they go towards a corner, like a hard braking zone, and the GT3, it seems like, can brake much later and actually closes that gap in. And it gets very close and very interesting as we continue around. Southern Lap still trying to chase down Gutierrez here as they go along. We're through into the S's again, and Southern Lap, you can see, hitting the curb a little bit, slightly different line there, but is really trying to find the pace here to close this up as they go.
Yeah, and again, you know, this is once again the ebb and the flow of traffic. He closes in so much over part of the lap, and then as soon as a little bit of traffic is there, you know, the hypercars really didn't quite help him on the back straight, I think. Sometimes you have to try and actually match the lapping traffic, basically, to try and get a bit more slipstream to get closer there. But, you know, realistically, how can you try and get slipstream from a hypercar when, well, they get outside of your slipstream range about, well, 2 seconds after passing you?
It's very, very difficult, but we'll see the drivers hold on to it. Here's Angelitas coming through in third place. They're catching up to GT3s at this point. He's chasing down Scarpope in second place. There we go with the Aston Martin to the inside. You see a little bit of the brake lights. There's more brake lights from another Aston Martin as they go around here. George Angelitas in this third place. And you got to remember that this is championship deciding race for many situations. So at this point for George Angelitas, it's very close between him and Chen. He needs to be up near Chen a lot closer than 47 seconds. And we've had another DNF of someone. They got stuck in the final corner. I'm not sure who it was, though, but I know we've had another DNF in. And it's JT Tammy who's DNF'd out in the GT3 class. That's a big moment for JT Tammy. Because, again, he's in the title fight with David Junt.
I mean, Junt also having had some bad luck earlier on in the race, so maybe it's a little bit more of an equalizer now again, but that doesn't look good.
That's a curious one, actually, to see, because the car was still in 6th gear, too, so I don't know what's just happened with JT Tammy, but he is there and then not. We'll see if we can find any more information in the back end. I will rely on Mr. Reese or Ross Smith in the background to give some info. JT Tammy reporting stuck throttle, couldn't downshift due to shift protection. So JT Tammy gone out of this race. Adios. See you later. And it looks like Porteous Heath trying to help him in the background there in YouTube chat. Big shout out to Benjamin Porteous Heath. Should be on track, isn't on track, but is helping out in YouTube chat with other drivers. So curious to see that. George Angelitas, look at that shiny car here in the sunset in Atlanta as we go around. Still trying to chase down Scarpope. And again, remember, he's got to find that 46 seconds to Jerry Chen. And I was just looking. They're on the same pit stop cycle. That 46 seconds is a legitimate 46 seconds on pace. Maybe some incidents in the mix, but that is a legit 46 seconds gap that exists right now.
And that it'll put some pressure on you as well, because we're now past the halfway mark already, pretty much. And as opposed now, as I said earlier, to when you're thinking basically, okay, I have still quite a lot of the race left to make my moves. Now you're starting to go over to the thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to start, actually attacking now. I have to start gaining some time back, because this gap is, not gainable in the last 20 laps or something. You have to start making your full push laps now, and I'm not sure, everyone is quite prepared yet, because the sun is going low as well. The visibility is changing, and it doesn't seem like much, but, brake markers seem different, the line seems different, and the spatial awareness goes different with this...
The Mustang has to give room there, and gives room, it does, but George again going to be back. And that was one of the other Mistral Porsches off in the background. That was a random off that we just caught in the corner. I'm not sure who that was. 40 laps officially remaining here. George Angelides will have time to chase down. That was Monet, we believe, in the background, who just cut the chicane there. Nothing too wild, but did have that moment and wasn't, I don't think had any issues, got away with it, but a little off track. Never hurt anybody. I didn't know that hypercars were also lawnmowers in the meantime here. I gotta wonder how the handling will change for these cars as they go through. I feel like everyone's gonna have to really enjoy that cooling track. I feel like cars will get faster. Scar Pope now into the pits will relegate second place to George Angelides, but of course George will need to pit very soon as well.
Yeah, and there's this ebb and flow once again. You're getting into the pit stop phase, and you're basically trying to find your optimal pit cycle moment. You're trying to get in and get out, pretty much to circumvent traffic. And with, there could be more cars on track. There could be, like in real life, almost 50, maybe 60 cars on track. But even then, with over 30 cars, now still over 25 cars on track, it's still, quite a lot of cars around here.
This is going to be a moment for George Angelides. If he can, he's got the GT3 traffic in front, but if he can navigate them and very quickly get them out of his way, flash the lights. And I do also want to side note, I hope everybody has their auto headlights turned on. We've seen people lose out of races due to headlights, and that's something that I know we've talked about with Ross, and Ross's answer was you have to turn on the auto headlights. George Angelides coming around through the final corner now. Scar Pope is moving in the pit lane, exiting the pits, and George is in. Did George get a fast enough in lap here to cover off Scar Pope? We'll see what happens here. It's going to be very tight.
He was... stationary for 42.2 seconds. Very quick, really quick race analytics there from our camera director and broadcast director. So he's really earning his paycheck here right now with the multifunction display. And
Man.
I gotta be honest, James and I are always basically panicking when we're asked to do math on the fly, and meanwhile, our broadcast director, he's basically just running 4 calculators at once, 6 stopwatches, and...
George has pulled a short stop, I believe. Look at that. George is flying into the S's now. Did Scar take tires and George didn't? Because that's a 15-second pit stop difference that we just saw with them. And we're lap 63 of 101. We're within 40 laps to go, but a 15-second pit stop difference. That is huge.
That is absolutely huge, and I think that will now be one of the big striking factors here, because he has removed himself pretty much from the entire fight, at least for now. And I'm just wondering, if that gamble with the tires, they can change single tires as well in the pit stops. I am wondering, if these tires will actually last, because Road Atlanta is a quite high tire wear track in the right cars, and you have to have the setup properly dialed in just to be, perfectly on the safe side.
I will tell you, I'm looking at the tire compounds for most of the drivers, and several of the hypercars have transitioned to the hard compound tire. Most are left on the medium, so it's interesting for me to see that compound difference go through some of our hypercars. Alexander Scholes, Timon Suvic, Goncalves, and John Mayer onto hard tires. And the hypercars can also run split axle tires. We don't usually see them do that unless it's super hot. They'll run medium tires one side and hard tires the other. A penalty for Gray coming out of the pit box there. Not at all what we want to see, but we're continuing to watch through. Katarinakis is currently pushing through and trying to hold on. That is going to be Scarpope behind, who's trying to snake his way through. We've got more hypercars trying to go through. And as the night falls here, the sunset hitting here at Road Atlanta at this Petit Le Mans course, as the sunset hits, things are going to get real challenging in terms of visibility, in terms of staying together. We're going into the final moments of this race, and everyone's going to have to be on their P and Qs.
Yeah, they're going to have to be on the absolute A game, especially, as you said, the visibility will change completely. It's going to be something, especially, the sun will be coming down. It's going to blind the drivers, and you sometimes just need the light to hit you slightly wrong, to get reflected slightly wrong for absolute chaos and destruction to happen. And, obviously, like as commentators and as spectators and, as fellow drivers, we're hoping that this doesn't happen, but the chance is definitely always there.
I will tell you the one thing I like about the sun going down is those Corvettes in that GT3 AM class are bottoming out at certain points, and those sparks are going to be absolutely amazing to watch as they go through. John Mayer has picked up a penalty leaving the pits. That is going to be big for his race. They're currently 6th in Hypercar AM and will have to serve that penalty through, and that is going to hurt a lot. Oh, we catch Dan Herlock getting wiggly in the S's.
Yeah, those cars incredibly stiff, and just again, basically driving on the edge of their grip, as we're watching on the edge of our seats. And oh my goodness, these guys are pushing quite a lot now. Obviously, at this point in the race, you have to push quite a lot. You have to close the gaps in front and behind. Well, widen the gaps behind you and close the gaps in front of you. But yeah, these guys will have to now look out for the visibility changes. They'll have to look out for, the behavior of the others, as the visibility around them changes, and hopefully find their way through unscathed.
They hope to do that, however, very few will actually pull that off. Herlock and Kirby separated by 1.1 seconds. You see Kirby there on the left-hand side, just went off the left-hand side. And Herlock going through. Pit stop cycles are out of sync for them, though, but they both have 3 pit stops. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that. That is, I believe, Kesby that is well in the way of Herlock, as Herlock is trying to go through. We've just got this fun little train of cars, headlights on, running their way down the S's, up the S's. That is the number 2, actually, of Michael Locke, who is well in the way of Dan Herlock, and Dan Herlock now getting Michael Locke out of the way. Try saying that 10 times fast, as Dan Herlock is now 2.5 seconds off of Kirby and is continuing to run through as the nighttime falls here at Road Atlanta. Lap 67 of 101 here for the Virtual World Sports Car Championship here at Road Atlanta, brought to you by CMS Racing on the JP Broadcasting Network. And be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bells, do all of the fun things you can do for free. Dan Kirby's DNF'd. What? Hold. Forget everything I just said. Actually, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bells, all the fun stuff. Dan Kirby has DNF'd. Throw the whole sheet out. What? Oh, and we see here. We'll get a replay up very quickly and see what happened with Dan Kirby as he's going through. And is this a case of it just kicks him to the pits. He disconnected from the session, and Dan Kirby very quickly, and he's won the championship, but he wants to just put the foot down. And Dan Kirby has said in chat very, very plainly, "Are you kidding me?"
Oh my goodness me, that is heartbreaking. I wouldn't say that's just an R-Factor 2 thing. That can sometimes just happen with any internet provider, honestly. Basically, this sort of thing happened to me quite a few times when I was still an HPD Works driver in the SRO Esports Championship. And a couple of other competitions. At that point, I basically wanted to invoice my internet provider for the lost prize money. But a couple of friends and, Carl Whitmer said that maybe I shouldn't do that, though he would love to see me actually send that letter and see their reply.
I feel like someone has done it, and if you have done it, I would like you to personally message me and tell me what your provider did, if they reimbursed you or not. I'm sure there's a number of factors that go into that. To answer YouTube chat, yes, that was a disconnect. Based on what Dan Kirby has said with an "Are you kidding me?" the nature of the car crabbing, that is a disconnect. That is a case of either the computer or the internet said, "I am done. You don't need to actually run this race. I take nap here now. Bye-bye." It's something we have in sim racing to consider. You know, in real life racing, you know, the fuel pump can fail, a lug nut can fall off. You can adjust something in the front of the nose of the car during parc fermé conditions and cause questions. In sim racing, we have the fun of internet service providers or our PCs just saying we're done. It's the equivalent real life hardware failure that you have to compete with. It is it's a case of that. It's unfortunate, but again, if you're racing in real life, it's something you would deal with. So it just gives that moment through. We're following Schulz here, who's running through. Up ahead, it looks like there is some more action going around and through and out. The timing table is deceiving here, Nico, because it looks like on the timing table there's not a bunch of stuff going on, but anywhere you look, there's cars passing cars, there's action everywhere. The timing table is not telling the story of this race right now.
Yeah, I think the timing table, obviously only shows for position, and obviously, we don't quite have everything going on for position right now, but we have people constantly lapping, being lapped, and it's just, Jesus Christ, you have the cars just pushing so much. It's quite nice to actually see like the lateral forces actually on the cars, like pushing them out there. And now we have Dan Herlock, our leader, who inherited the lead in the pit lane, as Magnus Dahlgren and the next person behind, that is Mike Bell, who had bad luck earlier. Actually had quite 2 excursions at first corner and S's, and now, despite those excursions, is now, looking to be in P3 overall, and actually moving up to P2 momentarily, I think, as Magnus Dahlgren takes the lead after that pit stop. I think that should be the second to last or last pit stop, actually.
Should be, as we go through 30 laps to go in this race. And you can see there, as Paul has been cycling the leaderboard on the left-hand side, you can see where everybody is at in position in class. If I haven't said your favorite driver's name here today, well, they should show up on that leaderboard, so make sure you're looking for them as we continue through and continue around this race. Dahlgren in the lead here, 24 seconds back to Herlock. Again, these pit stops are out of sync, though, so we're continuing to watch how that cycles through. I'm curious to see how things shape out in the end. Everyone here, you see Schulz is on your screen now with Locke 1 lap apart on pit stop strategy, so they are genuinely where you see them. It's interesting to me to think how pit stop strategy in this endurance race can play such a difference. That's the Mustang of, I believe, Gutierrez there on the left-hand side of your screen, who is flashing his headlights and trying to just say, go away or get away or pass me. Not sure why he'd be flashing his headlights at this point. You would think the hypercars around him would all be the ones flashing the headlights, saying, get out of my way, as Scholes is very swirly through the final corner.
Yeah, I think overall I think generally it's like an awareness thing, as soon as you see something flashing, I think you are always a little bit more aware. A principle that BMW drivers in civilian traffic love to abuse, just so you make sure that, you know that there's a BMW coming through. And I'm accidentally offending our broadcast director here. Oops. It's just one thing, it gives you attention and alternatively, a seizure, but hopefully more attention instead of the seizure. So sometimes these guys, even if they're not, lapping, even if they're not quite in a position to lap yet, they just like to get a little bit of attention just as a cautionary measure, so to say.
You know what's interesting about that is the fact that the flashing in the US, traditionally people use flashing to tell people they're clear to get in front of them. Not necessarily as a case of, I'm behind you, I want to get past you. You see someone with their signal on, you can flash to tell them to go ahead and get in front of you, that it's okay. It's kind of like a wave by sort of moment. So it's curious to know the difference of what that means. But of course, in sports car racing, the flashing is, hey, I'm behind you, I'm here, pay attention. We're on board with Ben Kesby, who is trying to chase down, we're on board with Alexander Scholes. There we go. Now it's Ben Kesby who is running through in 8th place. You've started to see these battles close up as we're in these closing stages, and I think this is where the drivers are going to start pushing a bit more. The nighttime's in, the track's cooling down, they've got a bit more going here. We're riding on the main screen on the back of Alexander Scholes. I think the drivers are really going to start pushing here, and this is going to be where a lot of action happens. GT3 on the inside. Careful, Aston Martin. Oh, I can't look.
But we have to keep looking because otherwise we'll miss something. If you blink, you might miss it in these situations, and oh my goodness. Just a train of hypercars making their way down the back straight and back into the squiggly bits. And there is some more traffic right up ahead.
Scholes here with Cameron Barker behind him by 0.3 of a second. Behind them is Ben Kesby. These are the three that are just absolutely fighting it out going through, and you can see the way the light is reflecting on the cars. Plenty of battles through. This is going to be Kesby up the inside, going for the move. Can he make this pass stick into turn 1? Yes, he does, and that is Ben Kesby now up into 7th place in Hypercar Pro. And now Alexander Scholes, you are under some pressure, my friend. You're going to have to, big wiggle there.
Yeah, that is the pressure quite visible there, I'd say.
The GT3 up ahead is not where he wants to be. Ben Kesby here going to look for a pass on Scholes, trying to find the move. A little bit of a tire in the dirt. Goes through the GT3, now snakes in for the turn 6 and 7. And here we go. This is Scholes on the outside. To the inside is Kesby. Kesby gets the pass done. And ahead of them is going to be somebody else that they need to watch out for. Alexander Scholes going through. This is all sorts of lap traffic, all sorts of chaos going around. Both Mustangs there on the inside in our GT3 class. Ben Kesby flashing the headlights saying, get out of my way, please.
Yeah, this is this constant stress now, it's now at the 75% mark pretty much, as it's, so beautifully shown by, 100 lap 75, well, 74 right now with discounting the formation lap. But, these guys now know, okay, we don't have much left in this race. We have to get our moves done now. And I think this is now the hottest part of the track, on track tension. Simply because these guys will now be looking to make moves at places where they would be hesitant before.
That they will, and again, remember that red zone through the S's, things will get judged a little bit more harshly than they would be otherwise. And we go through and we watch here. George Angelidis in Hypercar AM, I do want to point him out really quick, as he has gotten 30 seconds ahead of Scar Pope. He's in 2nd place in Hypercar AM, but still 34 seconds behind Jerry Chen. Remember, Jerry Chen, George Angelidis, that is your championship battle into this race and the next race, and it will not be decided until the next race at this point. So that will be a very close battle in Hypercar AM to keep your eyes on. Again, Dan Kirby has DNF'd out of Hypercar, but had that championship secured. This was just the crown jewel of the win. So we'll see how this goes. The question is, does Magnus Dahlgren need to pit again? And I am going to answer with yes, as he should be pitting around lap 80, I believe, as the hypercars were only slated to go about 20 to 25 minutes through. John Uyen will probably need to pit as well. It'd be interesting to see how that goes. Dan Kirby is back on track, by the way. He's in P13. So he's not completely out of this race, but I'd say he's well out of contention for a win.
Yeah, that's. I don't think that's a deficit that you can catch back up. But yeah, just really, really unfortunate for him. That was basically. I don't want to say it like that, because it's always this. I don't know. It can fuel just ego a little bit wrong, or it can cause outrage. But I'd say that was pretty much a guaranteed win because he was in top form. He was making no mistakes at all, driving really, really well, and then obviously this really unfortunate set of circumstances with the disconnection there, and but even the end, still good to see him come back to finish the race, finishing what he started, and I think even then, even if the result isn't there on the timing sheet in the end, it's still very, very easy to be proud of that. That was a really good run.
This is George Angelides pushing the limits on the exit of the final corner there, riding the curb. The bottom of the car is not going to be happy with that. Now into turn one, running very wide. I guess he doesn't like WeatherTech either, as he took an aim at that sign, missed it, but he thought about hitting that. I don't know what's wrong with WeatherTech or Goodyear or Michelin or Motul. I don't know what's wrong with any of them, but the drivers don't like any of them. So yeah, they're not a fan of that. Paul has some beef with WeatherTech, but we're not going to bring that up here because I don't need WeatherTech to come after CMS today. So Paul Glover can keep his WeatherTech opinions to himself. Here we go with Alexander Schultz going down the inside, around, down into turn 10A, 10B, hard on the brakes. Good pass done all day. Alexander Schultz in 7th place. I gotta say, Nico, one of the things I love is how bright the front brake disc glow on these hypercars.
Yeah, it is absolutely magnificent. This brake glow, I think, is one of the nicest features for, that we got since Studio 397 took over R-Factor 2. And it's not much, but it's a nice visual. It's quite nice. And it gives a little bit more, how would you say, impact. It gives you a little bit more connection to how much forces are there in the brakes.
It does. It's a very nice visual chain there to see of what is where. We're watching Robert Strachan at the moment, 3rd place in GT3, a lap down on the field here. Ryan Palbert Reyes is in the GT3 AM lead here. Will be trying to hold on, is in the box now. You see the right-hand side of that BMW, the Beamer, go up, and it looks like 4 tires will be the plan there for Reyes. Bice is down a lap here in GT3 class, so even if he gets around, it's not going to make much of a difference. Yellow flag in Sector 2. Something has happened around turn 6, turn 7, I'm going to guesstimate, and that is going to be Gilles Lalonde. What has happened to Lalonde there in Sector 2? He's gotten off somewhere. We'll see if we can pick up a replay in a moment. It's the dead of night now, so drivers possibly having visibility issues, causing some additional wrecks here, Nico, and causing additional moments for drivers.
Yeah, I'd say, this is this situation now where the lighting has completely changed. At least a few minutes ago, you still had the sinking sun still, giving some more overhead light, and all of a sudden now it's, completely dark. It's pitch black. You only have your, well, still quite bright headlights. If you see the comparison ever between normal road car headlights and race car headlights, but nevertheless, there's still, it's quite some illumination difference. That's along there, and that was over the curb quite bigly, and again over the curb quite bigly, but luckily no big off as it seems. So that was very, very close.
I'm glad that Lalonde was able to hold on to that, because for a split moment, I thought that he was absolutely going to have a bad time. Cameron Barker here in 8th place. We check in with him. 8th place in Hypercar, 1.5 seconds off of Ben Kesby ahead and trying to chase down that Ferrari ahead. Ferrari versus Porsche action here going through. Got now 2.2 seconds before I can finish my thoughts. So that Crown Dental Group Ferrari of Ben Kesby against the CMS Pro of Cameron Barker. We'll see how their battle shapes up in these closing stages. We're approaching 20 laps to go here as our leader of Magnus Dahlgren is just running through nice and pretty and just pacing his laps along. He seems to be sort of comfortable, but the gap is only 5 seconds back to Dan Herlock. And it is continuing to drop. And there's somebody off on the right-hand side. Who was that was off?
Couldn't quite see it. I'll blame it on the darkness.
Yeah, the dark is interesting. It was there turn 6, turn 7. We believe it was Eric Monet. If it wasn't you, Eric Monet, I'm sorry, but that's just who we think it was. So we'll see here. We'll bring up this replay real quick of Eric Monet and see if he was the one we saw off. He's going down through. This is bottom of the hill. He has a moment there. He holds on to it off on to the bike runoff and is able to get back underway. Nice and pretty there, and it looks like he just joins in back behind there in 5th place in class.
Some more madness in traffic there, and going for the middle there, the reverse Ricardo Zonta. And there we have a little bit of a replay here again. Oh, that was live now. Okay, sorry, I got mixed up there for a moment with some nice Ricardo Zonting in the replay. Luckily, we have a very alert broadcast director. But yeah, now the now the camera on Cameron Barker, another man who met some misfortune earlier on in the race, but was able to recover himself quite nicely. Now Magnus Dahlgren is in the pit lane for his final stop, and still stationary actually. So.
Man.
And Uyan as well, actually.
We are seeing some moments here, up, down, all the way around. The Mustang's doing Mustang things here. Cameron Barker around. Uyan, as you said there, Nico, in the pits. It looks like Dahlgren in the pits at the moment as well. Lots of drivers going down laps is the other thing I'm noticing. Lots of drivers are going down laps on the leaders, and it goes to show just the consistency that the leaders are putting down here on the track as we continue along here. Officially in that 20 lap to go window, so we are nearing the end of this race, heading into the deep of the night here with the Hypercars in their way and running here in Atlanta. We go through trying to see here. Hypercar AM's into the pits as well for what should be their final stop.
And I think most of these guys are not too concerned with pushing anymore, just like getting the last bits in. We don't have too many people too close, though we do have Chen in the pit lane. And okay, Angelidis actually comes in as well, so I thought for a moment, you know, Angelidis might try to go for another lap out and try to pull another sneaky on us, but not quite yet.
That's not to say that he won't do it. It's just it doesn't look like he's trying something here.
He'll just do it later.
Yeah, exactly here. This should be their final stop, but that does not guarantee it's their final stop. Cameron Barker here getting stuck behind the Mercedes as they run down the S's. And that is Peter Meyer. He is stuck behind. Quick recap of your race here as we're nearing the end of this race. We started out with 35 cars. We're down to 30. Jamie Zalecki with a moment. Craig Pullen with a moment. David Junt had a moment. Luke Goodlife had a moment early on. And Ross Smith didn't make it to lap 10. Before being the first victim of the S's, and pretty much everyone that we've mentioned has lost the S's. George Angelidis has had a moment, and if you could hear what I'm hearing in my ear, we're having a big reaction to the fact that George Angelidis has had a moment. We'll see if we can get a replay here in just a moment, but George Angelidis has had a moment, and here is our replay. Nico, I fear that this is going to be upsetting for any George Angelides fans. Running down the hill we go. That is George in the blue car going around. And what has happened to George Angelides? Well, he's going out the outside of one of the Bice brothers, running through, coming behind the Aston Martin, goes into the braking zone, runs it a little wide, and now you've got an opportunistic pass up the inside. And there is... who is that? That's the number 82. That is actually going to be one of our other hypercars.
I think that was Dahlgren, wasn't it? In the 82? Or did I see the wrong paint scheme?
That is Scholes, actually. So that is Alexander Scholes that's had a moment. That was him versus George Angelides. Pro versus Am. Interesting to see that it credited that to Angelides. So, yeah, interesting to see that that crash was credited to George Angelides, but that was indeed Scholes. So, apologies for any mix-up. Angelides, apologies for any offense that might be thrown your way there. Paul Glover has accepted all fault and has said to direct all mail and complaints his direction. Ben Kesby is the most recent DNF. I will not repeat what Paul Glover just said. He has said you could throw it on a postcard and message him for the direct address to mail it. Kesby, DNF all the way out. This is what's happened to Kesby to DNF, and this is oh, ouch. When even the camera continues on and the car stops, that is very, very painful to see. David Junt, car sadly felt very bad here. No balance through the S's. Also made it possible to push it anywhere near good pace. Noticed the gaps when I retired, not that far in. Can't wait for mixed GT3 class to be over. Yeah, it's David. It seems like a few people have had some balance issues here. It's just the nature of Atlanta, up, down, side to side, twisty bit roller coaster S's. It can be challenging even if you have a good balance to see what happens here. Stacy, okay, gotta go. Great broadcast as always. Great job, Bradley, Paul, and Nico. Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stacy. Appreciate it as always. We'll see how this ends out here in this race. We're at 15 to go, actually. Herlock, 35-second lead over Bell.
Yeah, a really good run from him overall here. And, inheriting the lead, but then also just, continuing to build it, because I am pretty certain that was less than 30 seconds. Pretty sure it was more in the range of 20 seconds. So basically, Daniel Herlock just building the lead over his teammate and just working through consistency there. That was a little bit close there for a thing. My stream started then for just a little moment, and I thought, okay, we're going to see the next little bit of, bits flying across the screen. But luckily not, because everyone's alert on this racetrack.
Everybody is awake and alert, even though... Wiggles. Everyone's awake and alert, even though it's the dead of night here in Road Atlanta. Is of course just 4 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully everybody's awake that's running. This is going to be Michael Locke having a moment here and going the tire barrier doing its job, sending the car off. And then you see the GT3. I think that's Gutierrez going through, flashing the lights, saying, hey, I'm trying to come through. That's going to be looked at by the stewards, I fear.
Yeah, I don't think that was a safe rejoin.
Yeah, that is going to be looked at by the stewards. I don't think they're going to be very happy with that, but we'll see what decisions they make here. Dan Herlock, 36 seconds in the lead. I don't think he needs another pit stop. He's done 4. Mike Bell has done 4 as well. I think this 37 seconds and counting is genuine on the 37 seconds of pace here.
Yeah, I would say that as well. And just in general, staying out of trouble, staying within his limits, even after this, long time now on the road. And yeah, that is a very bad angle there. Especially because it just gets so tight then, the high curves. Well, that actually led to this incident here as well. Ooh. Yeah,
that was an angry flash there. going through. I believe that was actually Lalonde there with the angry flashes going through as we come around. Dan Herlock getting through traffic. No harm, no foul. Just as a quick reminder here, they pit 18 laps ago, and if you do the math, 20 to 25 minutes expected on a fuel run. We are approaching them having to come into the pits, and actually here it is, splash and dash from Herlock. It looks like another hypercar following in. I'm not sure which hypercar that is behind. That is one of the blue Mistral cars coming in. We think that is Mayer actually coming in. There we go. The timing table answers my question as they go in. And this should be splash dash run. Mike Bell, this might be your chance.
Yeah, this might be a very good chance for him to catch up there, but obviously also has to run. Oh, he actually has to pit as well. Yeah, he has to come in as well. Oh.
All right. Well, throw it back to Magnus Dahlgren then. Does Magnus Dahlgren have enough to make it to the end? He pitted 8 laps ago, but the gap is very wide, and I would guess that Herlock is coming out of the pits now, so Dahlgren might pull off a quick, sneaky second place here. He pit 8 laps ago. He should have fuel to make it to the end. Is he going to get past Mike Bell? And he will. There he goes. Clears Mike Bell on the left-hand side. So Magnus Dahlgren has pulled second place, but 19.3 seconds is the gap to make here. I don't know if Dahlgren can make the 19 seconds. That's going to be a very, very close battle here. Mike Bell now out of the pits, has been relegated down to third. 10 seconds the gap, though. This could get very close in the final 10 laps.
Yeah, I think so as well. Ooh, yeah. I am wondering, because John Uyen is also, like, quite close now. Also, obviously, in a far better rhythm now, you know, not having to stop pretty much. And I'm wondering, you know, how maybe it'll now move out with traffic in this situation.
Traffic is going to prove to be someone's best friend and be someone's worst enemy as this race goes through. Herlock currently has a 21-second lead to Magnus Dahlgren. Magnus Dahlgren, as a reminder, holds the fastest lap of the race with a 109.3, and a 109.9 is Dan Herlock's fastest lap. So Magnus Dahlgren has pace. Do not let that be doubted. Magnus Dahlgren has pace. It's the matter of if he can find the pace here this late into the race. I did not mean for that to rhyme. However, I will take a dime. So we continue around with lap 90 of 101. We go. John Uyen there in 4th place. Again, trying to chase things down. We got a replay coming up, and this produced an oh no from Paul Glover. So let's see what this is. This is Timon Subic. And what has Subic done? Well, Subic has surveyed his car into the tire barrier on the outside of turn 1. Get another. He's flashing the GT. I think that's him over driving it into the curb.
Yeah, that is just a bit over eagerness there, isn't it?
I don't know if I would blame that on the GT3 at all. The GT3 wasn't anywhere near him, so I think that's a case of Timon Subic just over driving his car. I mean, you might try to say, well, the GT3 was in front of me and it distracted me, but I mean, ultimately, you know, if that is an argument, the counter argument is, well, there was no contact made. It's nowhere near you. Not a lot that can be said. This is Micah Lock here at the bottom of the hill. What has Micah done? Well, Micah ramped it off the curb, and again, Doc Hudson turned hard enough right to go left, and it looks like he actually took the advice there of the Hudson Hornet, and I think he might actually save this car around at the end of the replay, not get into the tire barrier, but he is in a very scary spot there to stop.
Yeah, right on the high curb, and on the left you can get stuck in. On the left you can get stuck on the curb. Well, in the gravel, sorry. On the right you can get into, well, the worst place in World Motorsport history. And, yeah, so it's all about recovery now. And we hear another big hit from our broadcast director. So now waiting to see it.
This is Katarinakis. This is a GT3. We haven't seen a lot of GT3s have huge moments in the hypercars, and I physically flinched at that.
I felt that in my neck.
I think you'd be feeling that a lot more than your neck. So, yeah, Katarinakis, I don't know how that car is driving here. Gilles Lalonde coming across here. The Mercedes for company behind. However, it looks like Lalonde just having a solo car incident, bumps the Michelin sign, sends the Michelin sign onto the racing line, and then comes off and then just spins from there. So he does this, hits the sign goes to the line, but keep your eyes on Gilles Lalonde as they come through, and then he just manages to whoopsie-daisy. The back of the car turns to the front of the car, and he rolls downhill into the barrier.
Minor inconvenience.
He has not moved either, we're being told. So he is still sitting stationary in Sector 1. Hopefully everything is okay for him. Now he is underway. So,
okay, that was the wrong time to get going.
Oh, and now watch the other hypercar behind. Watch the other hypercar behind. Hypercar, watch the Mustang. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, several drivers will need to overnight Amazon a fresh pair of tidy whities, and if they need that, I do have Amazon Prime. I am willing to assist. I will just need their credit card information in exchange.
Oh my goodness.
Oh. Okay, Nico, so last time around, Mike Bell was 2 seconds quicker than Dahlgren. However, we're lap 93.101. I have to ask, is there anything Mike Bell can do? He's got 6 seconds, 5 seconds now, that he needs to make up on Magnus Dahlgren. It's one thing to catch, it's another to pass. We're lap 93.101. Do we think there's a chance for a battle in second place?
Either way, that's...
Gilles Lalonde has been off the track here. Nico, I think things are getting antsy here with 5 laps to go.
I think people are getting a little bit exhausted now from the track because, you know, obviously you have the short straight between the entire S section and between the two right-handers, and you have the long back straight, but other than that, you're constantly turning, constantly waging your options at how to take the corner, which gap to go for. And I think at this point, you know, the mental exhaustion will kick in a little bit. And, well, for some of these guys, a little bit harder than others. Let's hope that we're not going to have any more losses this race.
I hope not, but of course, to finish, you have to cross the line at lap 101 at the checkered flag. So that's going to be the big question here is, can everyone do that? Or is that little bit of fatigue going to creep in, the little difference of the nighttime? You can see that none of the barriers on the outside of the racing line are standing at this point. So you can tell that everyone's had, at least someone's had a moment somewhere for something. I think everyone has had at least one moment of a slight off here. We're following with Adam Gray here, who is trying to hold on to that 6th place as we go along, and it's running nice and smooth, actually, I have to say, in that hypercar. We've seen Adam Gray have some moments all the way through this race, but is doing a very good job of keeping the car moving here as we are getting within that 5 laps to go. John Mayer coming around here in 7th place and is trying to chase him down. John Mayer just a second behind as they continue. And there's Magnus Dahlgren actually lapping John Mayer. Magnus Dahlgren will be looking to get around Adam Gray ahead, as well as Magnus Dahlgren, 27 seconds the gap, and he's not really in the fight for first at this point unless something big happens to Herlock, but he is definitely still fighting for second place. Gap down to 3.8 seconds now between Dahlgren and Bell. He has got to get around this traffic and get a little bit of breathing room.
And that's the problem here, that it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to get breathing room with this many cars up ahead, even with hypercars. These guys have to slow down quite considerably for some traffic situations, and it just bunches up more and more, like just there. And I think these last couple laps, like the last 5 laps now, they'll be very, 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 very stressful.
And Mike Bell just making it a little more stressful for himself here, going around that number 65 Mustang. And you can see the light flashes just kind of saying, what were you doing? What was that? That's, Mike Bell, that was a very brave move, but he's getting the gap down. Gap now 1.5. We continue along. Mike Bell might be in for that second place as we go through. Up ahead of him is Magnus Dahlgren. Magnus Dahlgren behind Adam Gray now, I believe. That is just ahead as they go through the GT3 off into the grass as we continue along. That was Miller who was off in the grass there, recognizable for that green and yellow livery paint job as they go through. Here we go. This is where things get interesting. Adam Gray on the inside, well out of the way. Stay out of the way. Mike Bell now on the back of Magnus Dahlgren. Magnus Dahlgren is fighting for the second place of his life. If he can hold on to it. He pitted 16 laps ago. Mike Bell pitted 8 laps ago. So we will see how that plays into things. This is going to be interesting. Nico, I always say it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass. However, do we think this will be easier?
I don't think any moves around here are easy. Mike Bell has to catch him in a very opportune moment. And I think especially, you can counter so nicely with these cars in general. And you can see how much Mike Bell is pushing. He has to be careful that he doesn't over-push his tires as well. This is another good breathing room for Dahlgren because Bell opts to stay behind that Honda NSX, not Civic. That is completely the wrong class of car. And Dahlgren is still able to get a little bit more of that slipstream from the car in front. Even if it's not a lot, it helps a little bit.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. There was a little bit of a, I don't know if you all caught that, but there was a little bit of a spark, something in the background, and we believe that there's been another DNF of Scholes. Scholes has DNF'd, actually, Alexander Scholes in Hypercar. We'll see if we can figure out what happened here shortly. We're lap 98. Here we go. Magnus Dahlgren still trying to run through, hold on as he can against Bell. Alexander Scholes has DNF'd, went to the pits. Magnus Dahlgren still in this battle. 30 seconds behind they are from Herlock, but 1 second or less separating Dahlgren to Bell as they continue. Here we go. Let's drop on board with Mike Bell as they're coming up to more GT3 traffic. Traffic all over the place. You see the curbs not playing kind at the top of the S's. And here we go, Mike Bell trying to set up a move. Can he use this Mustang ahead for a little bit of help? Well, he's going to try at least. They come through turn 7, and now we're going to have the long run down the backstretch, 8, 9, towards turns 10A and B. And this is going to be where we see Mike Bell try to make a move here. Nico, he's going through. He's going to take the dive to the outside. He's going to try to clear him. We go through side by side. He's going to have the inside into 10A, but the outside into 10B, side by side into the braking zone they go. A wiggle for Mike Bell, Magnus Dahlgren, and Mike Bell is able to hold on. Magnus Dahlgren in 3rd place. They have 2 laps to sort this out.
And if Magnus Dahlgren is still with some reserves in his tank, not just in the fuel tank, but also in his endurance, and I still think there's quite some fight left in him, judging from that braking maneuver. He has a very, very brief time window to launch a counter-attack here, sorry. His time is running very, very low right now.
Is close, and I think he knows it. So as we breathe here, Magnus Dahlgren taking a second to refresh here and just catch his breath, I think. He's not going to have the help of GT3 traffic. He's got to do this on slipstream of pace. Has a bad exit out of turn 7, and this is going to give breathing room to Mike Bell. Mike Bell able to get the power down in that Soda Fraschini opposed to the Alpine A24, and they will now run through, and apologies, the Alpine A424, let me say that correctly. Lap 100 is now started from Herlock. 2 laps to go now as they will cross the line. Our leader 33 seconds ahead of them, running his own race, running a very nice smooth race. Nothing bad can be said about Dan Herlock as he gets his way through traffic. He has very well ran smooth all the way through. He didn't start on pole. However, he was there when it counted, and this will be a very happy win. Mike Bice in the way here of these two as they're going to try to force the issue here. If car space, if space car, and there we go. Both of them are through.
So a little bit more confusion there with the overlay, but yeah, it's getting very, very close now, I feel.
This is the closest it could possibly be. Leader in the bottom right to keep your eye on as they go through. And you see he's around the Mustang now. He has started lap 101. Here we go. And you can see where that 33-second gap is playing along. It is continuing to just power through. And again, our leader just taking his final comfort lap there around Stephen Miller in the bottom right. We keep our eyes on Magnus Dahlgren trying to chase down Mike Bell, and that gap has opened up over 1 second now.
And I think that might be it for now. I think Magnus Dahlgren might just be taking this, stopping to attack, just bringing the car home, because third place is still something to not be ashamed about, especially with the high attrition rate that we had in this race. But actually, he's back on him again, so yeah, just a little I know in this situation, because one final attack, one last hurrah, one last 4 kilometers.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see how these two battle things out here. Mike Bell, Magnus Dahlgren. There's still some opportunity for passing if they can find it through turn 6, through turn 7. This will really be their final opportunity as they go. But as those two come down the backstretch, Dan Herlock will come across to win the 100 laps of Road Atlanta here in the VWSC Modern Series, and he will take the win by a dominant 30 seconds as we continue through. Mike Bell down the backstretch here into turn 10. Magnus Dahlgren behind, but he's a little too far behind. The gap now 1.5 seconds, 1 second in the braking zone. Mike Bell has one more corner, and he could say he held off Magnus Dahlgren through to the end. Mike Bell will bring it home in second place. Magnus Dahlgren in third. The gap at the end, 1.0. And they will bring it around here in Hypercar AM. Jerry Chen there with the Mistral Porsches 963 has ran a very comfortable race. He needed to have a good race as he is battling in the championship. It's him versus George Angelidis. And at this point, Jerry Chen can go into the final round a little more comfortable as he brings the run through. George Angelidis in second place coming through the final corner, and it will make his challenge in the final race a little bit harder. Not impossible, but it will be a big ask for George Angelidis into the final race in Bahrain in just a few weeks' time. Johnny Gutierrez has won GT3, is going around here. He has crossed the finish line, and here is your AM winner, the BMW. I love seeing a BMW at the top of the field in GT3. You don't see these cars get as much love unless you're in iRacing where they're extremely overpowered, but Brian Paulbert Reyes is your winner in the GT3 AMs. And he gets a celebratory little bit of a tap there.
Just a little bit of a tap on the shoulder, but the whole car's the shoulder.
Well, Nico, I'll tell you what, that is one heck of a race. That was... I tell you what, I'm sweating. I don't know about you. I know Paul is sweating. It wouldn't surprise me. He had some work put in, but Nico, that was one heck of a race, top to bottom.
Absolutely. From lights out to, lights out, but globally, or at least more locally. This was really, really good. Really great to see. And obviously, all these guys are really fighting for every single inch, every single centimeter on the track. And just really, really good. Let's have a look at the results here.
Yeah, and as we get the results up on screen, again, it is Dan Herlock who brings that win by over 30 seconds against Mike Bell, and Magnus Dahlgren just missing out by under 1 second there to Mike Bell for P2, P3, respectively. John Uyen in fourth place in the end. Michael Locke in P5. Jerry Chin, your Hypercar AM winner, finishing sixth place overall for the Mistral Porsches, and Cameron Barker in seventh place. George Angelidis in eighth place. Timon Suvic in 9, and Scar Pope in the Lamborghini rounding out your top 10 here. And if you notice, only the top 8 were on the lead lap. That's the pace that the top runners had. 11th place, Dan Kirby. 12th place was Vinicius Goncalves in P12. Eric Monet in P13. Adam Gray in 14th. John Mayer in 15th. And Alexander Scholes DNFing, but finishing in 16th place. Johnny Gutierrez, your winner in the GT3s in P17 with Max Southernlap in P18, a driver that we saw in front a lot of the time. Ryan Paulbert Reyes, your winner in the GT3 AMs in 19th overall. Robert Strachan finishing out your top 20, 10 laps down from the leader. From there, 21st was James Walker, 22nd was Stephen Bice, and then Gilles Lalonde in 23rd, Peter Meyer in 24th, Mike Bice in 25th, JT Tammy in 26th, Vasilis Katarinakis in 27th, Eduardo Benica in 28th, Ben Casby DNFing in 29th place, and Stephen Miller finishing P30. From there, we go along to P31. Just a few more drivers here. Jamie Zalecki DNF'd, Craig Pullen DNF'd, David Junt DNFing, Luke Goodlife DNFing, and Ross Smith DNFing as well. So out of our 35 cars in, there were 7 DNFs, which is a pretty good ratio of finishers to DNFs. So tell you what, overall, very, very fun race. It was very exciting to watch here. Let's see what drivers we have waiting along here when we are ready for interviews. Nico, tell you what, we'll pull the interviews in, but who would you like to start with first? What driver?
Oh, that's a rough call. Let's have a quick look who's actually sitting to be ready. I have to scroll properly. Let's have a look at Daniel Herlock. We have to start, first place first.
Yeah, we'll start out with Dan Herlock here. Let's pull him down into the booth. Your overall winner, Dan Herlock. It was for a while, it seemed like you were going to have a comfortable second place. And then it was just kind of dropped at you, Dan. Not saying, things weren't crazy, but I have to ask, how do you feel to win this one?
Well, it's not really the way you want to win, is it? Having an opponent disconnect. Obviously, Dan Kirby had driven a very good race.
It is unfortunate
difficult
to see.
It's difficult because it's just kind of a hollow victory because he was going to win without a doubt. Me and Mike tried to mix it up a bit on strategy, doing a 5-stop versus the regular 4, because on a 4-stop, I just had no pace, no chance. I would have been 20, 30 seconds back either way. So I tried to make it a little interesting, but I wasn't expecting to win either way.
Yeah, Dan, you actually ended up winning by over 30 seconds. I have to ask, when you were, running up front, if you don't have the pressure behind you, does it just kind of feel like a nice little Saturday evening drive, or, were things chaotic for you even without the pressure of a car behind?
Normally, like in the past races, it's been quite a Saturday drive, like Le Mans was when we had a gap. But this one with our strategy, that was very difficult. It was 100 laps, 100 qualifying laps, like on the edge every single lap. So that was quite tricky. Made a few mistakes, which was probably caught on the stream, knowing my usualness to catch incidents on the stream, whether that be freewheels or headlights not working.
I wasn't going to bring up the headlights. I was gonna leave that one alone. I am glad to see that your headlights were working today, though. That was a nice change of pace. So I have to ask, Dan, going into the final race of the season here in Bahrain, what are we thinking your goals are for next week?
We're going to see how the car is, if it's competitive or not, because since the BOP, it's been hit and miss, I'd say. The BOP at Road America, that is, or after Road America. So it's going to be difficult. We're either going to do the regular strategy where I'm not driving too hard, or I'm going to have to do what I did just then, and it's qualifying lap every single lap, and see how close we can make it.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch and see how things end up. Dan, before I let you go celebrate this victory, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just the boys in Discord keeping it entertaining, and obviously all the hard work that goes in, whether it's broadcast or whether it's the amount of hours I know some people have to put into this mod to run the series. So yeah, it's a lot of hard work behind the scenes that needs credit.
Awesome. And a big shout out to you, Dan, for the win here today overall. And we will see you for the season finale here in Bahrain in just a few weeks' time.
Cheers, guys.
All right. And then from there, it's only appropriate that we move to our Hypercar AM winner. Let's pull down one Mr. Jerry Chen. Jerry, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing very good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Jerry, talk me through your race here. Starting up front, running it through. Was there ever a point where you were worried you wouldn't have the lead?
Yeah, a little bit, because I knew George is gonna be pushing, so I got the qual pole, so that's what I wanted to get that extra point, bank it in, and then the first two stint I was pushing really hard. I was taking some chances, passing GT3s going into the S's, so I just wanted to get a good gap to George. And then after that, I just kind of managed the gap, and I was able to take it a lot more relaxed with the traffic. Yeah, so it was pretty good drive. The traffic was great. All the GT3 cars were awesome. I was surprised. I don't know what happened to Kirby. I don't know if you guys can tell me. I saw did he have a disconnect or?
Yeah, we think so.
Yeah. Dan Kirby, basically all we saw was he kind of drifted off the track and then disappeared, and then he posted in Discord and said, "Are you kidding me?" So
no,
our assumption is a disconnect.
Yeah, no, because George had caught up to me in the points in the championship in the last couple of races. So, and this track is a track for the Porsche. So I was like, okay, I got to make sure I get the pole and win this race to get that little buffer back for Bahrain.
That was going to be my next question for you. What's the goal going into Bahrain? I assume victory is the only goal, but how do you finalize this championship here? Of course, you and George have the long-standing history of battling for a championship back and forth and back and forth. So what do we do here to finalize the championship into your favor?
Yeah, my nemesis for 3 years now. We just keep racing each other. Well, so I have to check, once he posts the results, we'll see what the gap is. And then I think Bahrain is a track suited for the Acura with the big long straights. I'm gonna try and win, obviously, but if I can just manage, if I can stay within one position of George, I think that's kind of the plan, actually. So that way I don't have to push too hard. But yeah, we'll see how big the gap is after the results are posted for this race. But it's looking good. So But that being said, 2 years ago I was leading Ross in the Hypercar AMS by a few points going to Bahrain, and I just threw that race away, and Ross beat me for the championship. So you never know. Bahrain is not one of my favorite tracks, so we'll see what happens.
I think you'll be fine. Just drive patience, mind the GT3s, and I think it'll be okay, Jerry. But before I let you go, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just shout out to everybody. The season has been awesome. All the drivers have been great. Hypercars, GT3s. There's been so much awesome racing with George and Scar through the season, so it's been awesome.
Awesome. And a big shout out to you. Congratulations on the win. And we'll see if you can wrap up the championship next week or next time in Bahrain.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. And from there, let's go ahead and grab one Mr. Johnny Gutierrez. Johnny Gutierrez, a driver that we saw a lot of screen time on and managed to hold things out in the win in GT3. How's it feel to win?
It feels good. It's about time. The Mustang put the Mustang on the podium. So it feels good.
It is nice to see the Mustang on the podium. I got to ask you, how did the Mustang handle?
It handles like shit. Yeah, its tires are like in the 200 Fahrenheit degrees all the time. They wear out quick. It uses more gas, and whatever you do to the setup, it feels like you're on default. So yeah, I feel like crap.
All right, I gotta ask then. If it felt so bad, how'd you win?
I'm not sure. I'm not. Everyone was slower than the Mustang. I don't know. I noticed there was a few disconnects, so maybe maybe I just took advantage of those situations.
I will tell you, one of the big disconnects was Eduardo Benica
Yeah, noted.
dropped out. So I think that might have helped you a little bit there, if the Mustang was as much of a handful as you say. But I have to ask here, Johnny, what's going to be your goal for our next race in Bahrain, our finale in Bahrain? What's going to be the big goal for you?
Just top 5. I'm happy just racing with everyone around. It doesn't matter if I win or I'm on podium, as long as I'm having fun and don't get pissed off at the bombing of other cars. That's my goal right there.
I think that's a valid point there. So we'll give that one to you, Johnny. Anyone you want to thank? Anyone you want to shout out before we let you go? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I want to thank Eduardo for dropping out, so giving me first. So thank you, and that's it. Hey, great times, guys. Thank you for hosting us.
I absolutely love that, Johnny. Congratulations on the win, and we'll see you at the season finale here in Bahrain.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. At least he was honest about it. I mean, that's all I could say. Yeah. Thank you, Eduardo, for disconnecting. That was cheeky. Hold on, Johnny. We're not done here.
Okay.
I would just like to point out that you just thanked Eduardo for disconnecting.
Yeah, it sucks for him. It does suck for him. But you know what? That guy's like on a different planet. He's like with Elon on Mars while we're down here on Earth. So, once in a while, it's nice to get ahead of him,
I have to respect that. I just wanted to make sure I heard you right on that one, Johnny. Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. Again, congratulations on your win. We'll see you in Bahrain, and man, probably one of the top interviews in VWSC.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank you,
guys. Take care.
All right, and now that we've heard that, let's grab Ryan Paulbert Reyes, who this beautiful human being. I hope you're a human being, anyways. Ryan Paulbert Reyes has put a BMW on the top of the LMGT3 AM class. Ryan, how'd the BMW feel around Road Atlanta, and how's it feel to win the class?
It was great. I think with the BMW, you just have to manage tires, especially the front left. And once you can do that, with the right setup, the car feels planted. So it was a lot of fuel managing too. A little unsure about 100 laps. So yeah, it was great to put it on the podium. And also, like, I didn't even realize I finished top 3 in all of GT3. That's kind of cool.
You absolutely did. Big run there. Not only just winning the class, but as you said, top 3 in all of GT3. So a big stamp in the book there. Ryan, I haven't asked anyone this, so I'm going to ask you this. So apologies for making you in the hot seat. How was the traffic situation from your shoes?
Ooh, Sector 1 was kind of sketch. A little unsure about some of the hyper drivers because I haven't driven with a lot of them, but just being very, very mindful on the rearview mirror, and also depending on crew chief to let me know that there's a faster car coming. Yeah, it was kind of sketchy at some points, but once after the first maybe like 30 minutes of just getting used to getting past left and right, it kind of settled down, and it became a little bit more predictable as the race went on. But other than that, yeah, I mean, great driving for the most part from everyone.
And Ryan, it was great to kind of watch you run around in the BMW. Have you tried any of the other cars, and what made you pick the BMW? Because you're the only driver I know of that drives the BMW in this series.
Yeah, I always look to see who's in the BMW, and I always end up just being me. I've tried multiple cars. I do enjoy the Aston. I actually, private testing, I run faster in the Aston. And I mean, a part of me is like, if I wanted to drive the Aston, I could, but also a part of me is like to represent a car that no one really drives. I feel like it's more, it feels nice to drive a car quick, that no one else really drives. And looking at the timesheets and all that, like, I feel like it's like a big confidence booster going into next season. So, and a lot of the seat time with it, I'm just taking advantage of me being used to the car now because I know next season everything's going to change. So we'll see what I drive next season.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, of course, there is one round left in this race, but you won today's race in your class and top 3 overall of GT3s. Ryan, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
Yes, for sure. My teammates Mac and Alex. Alex actually took the win on Thursday night at Road Atlanta, so that was awesome. And Mac almost got the win today too, so it would have been a nice, 3 top finishes in our little team that we have. So thanks to them for helping me set up the car and practice and all that. And then also can't forget the girlfriend, because without her, she wouldn't allow me to, buy all the stuff that I have for like my sim setup and practice and have all the seat time. So shout out to her.
Absolutely. Always have to thank the misses, because without them, this would not be possible. So big congratulations to you. We'll see you at the next round in Bahrain, the season finale here in a few weeks' time.
All right. Cheers, guys.
All right. Well, Nico, I tell you what, hearing Ryan's perspective on traffic, hearing Johnny thanking Benika for dropping, hearing the GT3 drivers the hypercar drivers all upset about the disconnect up at the top of the field. Pretty unique little situation we find ourselves in here with Road Atlanta. Overall, Road Atlanta, I think, was a great race.
I'd say we had a very, very good race today. A very, very exciting race, and quite a lot of, on and off track action. In the, figurative and also the literal sense. And, I don't think we could have asked for more. We had, the guys, even when they had incidents and stuff, they're still very, very positive about each other. They're still going, hey, it's always great to race with these guys. And, personally, that's, the real winners were the friends we made along the way, to bring that cliche phrase. But it's really great always to see a good community, racing together, having fun, and still developing a really great race as well.
It was a really, really great race to watch. VWSC always produces great action, whether it's the moderns or the historics, to kind of give you an idea of where this season still has to go for where we're at. That was our penultimate round of this run. So from here, we do, of course, have the 1.5 hours of Monza coming up next Saturday. That will be in the historic series. And then 2 weeks from that, the 9th of November, is our season finale, the 2 hours of Bahrain. And then from there, there's 3 more historic races to come up that will get you all the way action into the 7th of December. Big shout out to Storm Gang Simulations, SGS, for all the work they've put in here. And a big shout out to everyone who has been in YouTube chat and been enjoying this 2 hours of racing. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bells, and follow both CMS and the JP Broadcasting Network. James Parfit missed a very good race, so we'll be sure to fill him in on that. But until the next one, my name is Bradley Dalton. I've been joined by Mr. Nico, and we have taken you start to finish. Be sure to join us for the next one, where we'll take you start to finish yet again. Good night.